Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto and Weiss married rwby. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by NeonZangetsu and link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. Run. Gurion Kalos ran. He ran and ran and ran as his lungs burned and his chest ached, flinging himself through the swamp with no heed. Uncaring of the noise he made, seeking only escape. Cold moonlight spilled down upon his bloody back, breath fogging before him as he flung himself forward at a breakneck pace. Run. 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 Had to run. Had to flee. Had to survive. His vision tunneled, focus narrowing down to a singular point, gasping for air. There was nothing else. He stepped into a sinkhole and a boot was sucked down by the bog. He yanked his leg free, tripped, stumbled and caught himself on his hands and knees. The pause cost him. Gurion. The haunting whisper echoed in his ear, heralded by a low whistle, deep and haunting, leaving the hair on the back of his neck standing on end. Like a thought he'd half forgotten but remembered too late. A nameless lullaby from his darkest childhood memory, promising to tuck him down into bed forevermore. He didn't know. He no longer knew. Or perhaps that was the blood lost talking. Might be the madness. So very hard to tell at the moment with his heart trying to burst clean out his chest. He whimpered, scrambled up to his feet and kept running. It should have been simple. Kill the silver-eyed bitch, slay Summer Rose. She'd been alone, here in Mistral. Weakened. Wounded. Surrounded by Grimm. Ripe for the picking. Lionheart had told him exactly where she would be. Vulnerable. Ripe for the killing. Until she hadn't been. Until that thing walked out the mist without a sound. Until it brandished its twin sickles and started cutting. Now it was chasing him. The hunter had become the hunted, the turns had tabled. Was that the saying? Tyrion thought it was. He was the one wounded and bleeding, missing both an eye and ear. The Rose would live to see another sunrise. He might not. If he failed to reach his bullhead, his mistress would be so cross with him for his failure here tonight. How she would beat him, how she would whip him senseless if he survived. No. He had to survive. Just keep running. Deed was good at that, running. Always had been. There. He could see his ship up ahead, past the bog. Freedom awaited. The cackle burst out of him. He was going to make it. Smoke billowed around him and ahead of, cutting off the path ahead. Too late, Tyrion glimpsed the hooded figure of a man lurking within. Broad of shoulder, whiskered cheeks dimpled in a selfsame smile. His lips pursed in a whistle. Paused, now, to consider him. Leaving so soon? The party's just getting started. Who are you? Rather than respond, his assailant smiled, stepped backwards into the mist and vanished before his very eyes. The sound of his footsteps faded soon thereafter. Soon enough the whistling went with it. All that remained in his wake was the silence. Terrible, dreadful silence. A moment passed. Another, now. Another. Still no sign of him. Where was he? Where had he gone? Twisting left to right in the haze only left him all the more disoriented. Gurion raged at it. Show yourself. Panic set in. He laid about himself with his knives and tail, to no avail. Only mist met him. Where are you? He howled. Where? A tan finger tapped his shoulder. He whirled, knives flashing. Slow. A sharp rebuke, then a hook sickle swept out of the mist to rake across his solar plexus, tearing a bloody line across his bare stomach. He cried out and slashed back, only to meet more mist. Steel cut through smiling shadows and failed to find the flesh he sought. Sloppy. He keened as a bloody sickle whistled out of the fog, cutting deep into his cheek. His tail stabbed out after it. Sad. An effortless parry sent him reeling. It was too much. Tyrion flew into a frenzy, hissing and kicking and spitting. This time his knives met steel. Red eyes gleamed at him in the mist, stark and slitted like some great beast. He glimpsed pearly white teeth in the gloom, bared in a savage smile, while his own petrified golden orb stared back at him within the hooked crescents. My turn, now. His fearsome foe flicked a fist, and those twin sickles curled inward, becoming paired punching instruments, ones that smashed into his chest and battered him backward in a storm of blows. It didn't stop there. A kick caught him in the ribs as another twist planted the hilts of the sickles together. Gears whirred and clicked as their hilts elongated before his very eyes, creating a wickedly hooked staff that he twirled once between his hands, sweeping in before he could react. It cut up, snared his tail just below the stinger, and sheared it clean off. Gurion fell to a knee and curled inward on himself, clutching his wound. No more pleas. His foe ignored the plea for mercy. An open palm rocked out of the smoke and closed around his throat, choking him. He grasped at it furiously, to no avail. Their grip was ironclad. It lifted him clean off his feet. An amused face bearing whiskered cheeks emerged from the haze. His pursuer lifted their head and removed the cowl, revealing steely blue eyes and tawny blonde hair streaked silver in places. The rest of his body followed soon thereafter, hoisting him high. A flick of the wrist sent him crashing down to the ground. Cold fingers tightened around his throat. Still smiling, he squeezed his face, idly thumbing a terrified tear from his cheek. Cold lips brushed his ears. "You're not living up to the legend, Scorpion." The lazy toss flung him away. The mist closed in again. "Howard. Stop hiding." "I'm not hiding. I've been watching you for the last year now, Tyrion." A boot caught his ribs, sending black spots bursting before his eyes. Steel clashed against his hands, ripping through his weapons, shattering them and taking his left hand besides. "I'm right here." Another kick wrenched a gasp from him and sent him skidding across the ground like a flung stone. "I've always been right here." Get up. He had to get up. Salem could grow him another hand. Another tail. He just had to get up and react. "I was there to witness all your deeds." A boot stomped down on the back of his head, grinding his bloody visage into the dirt. "Every crime. Every atrocity. I walked in your wake, repairing the damage you did. I wanted to see if you would stop. If you had some semblance of humanity left in that black festering pit you call a heart." Another stomp forced his face into a swampy puddle. "You didn't." Frantic bubbles welled up as he thrashed and struggled, the words muffled beneath the water. "And then you went after my daughter-in-law." He heard a faint sking sound as his world turned gray. "You lured a wounded woman into a trap and tried to kill her. But you didn't even notice me. Because madmen laugh in the face of death, right?" A hand caught him by his ruined tail and hauled him out of it, freeing him from a watery grave. "But you're not laughing now." Tyrion clawed his way onto his back and crawled away like a drunken crab, wasted and gasping for air. "You're no huntsman. You are plenty of things." The hooded man shouldered those wicked sickle scythes and pivoted, considering him as one might a stain beneath their boot. "I've been called many names by a great many people. Grandfather, father, uncle, brother, Naruto, to name a few. To you." The sickle hooked up under his chin, just shy of his jugular. "I'm death." He crouched before him, digging the blade deeper. A bead of blood welled up beneath bitter steel. "Straight up. And I've come for you, Tyrion. You, yours, and all your friends. It seems talk wasn't enough of a lesson all those years ago." He tutted softly, like a disapproving grandfather. "Now I'll have to make an example of you." "Death?" Incredulity gave way to fevered, frenzied hope, and he dared to laugh. "Ha! My mistress does not fear death. She cannot die. You know," a low, throaty chuckle rumbled over his whimper of pain. "I find the idea of immortality absurd. An eternity to live a life without end, to learn and grow as a person, to do some real good in the world, and your mistress didn't value any of it. Worse," the whiskered warrior gnashed his teeth. "She wasted it. All that knowledge. All that power. And what did she do?" A sad shake of the head followed, setting his blonde bangs swaying to and fro. "She didn't even try to learn. Not once. So I thought to myself, if she's stepping up her game again to go after my descendants, why don't I do us both a favor and start going after her pawns? After all, all's fair in love and war." Tyrion pushed against the knife. "That's cheating. You fiend." "Shhh." A finger pressed against his lips as he cooed softly. "Don't tell." The sickles crossed against his neck, hooking into his throat. Flicked out. And the world shifted. Oh. Oh, dear. Why was he looking up at him himself? That didn't make any sense, unless aha. So that's how it was. Tyrion's head tumbled from his bloody shoulders. The last thing he heard was that whistle. Darkness slithered in. "Pick it up." Summer creaked an eye open. That shouldn't have been possible. She didn't have eyes to see. Not anymore. Didn't she? She'd lost them. She remembered losing them. She could recall that much. Everything else was so blurry. All the world a gray haze that wouldn't go away no matter how hard she blinked. She dimly recalled Tyrion Callows. That raving lunatic fighting her amongst a horde grim, working with the creatures to beat her down. His whirling and cackling and slashing until finally, he got the better of her. A blinding flare of pain as his knives slashed across her face. Screaming. Falling to her knees. Clawing at her useless eyes. And then came the whistle. Tyrion had been the one to scream after that. Summer wondered if he was dead. She hoped it hurt. Summer Rose had heard that whistle countless times in her life. To most it was a deadly dirge that promised doom. To her it was a reassuring lullaby, a gentle reminder that Tiang's old man, her father-in-law, was near, watching over her and her children. Yang and Ruby loved that whistle. "Easy, now." A familiar voice drawled, drawing her back from the black. "I just regrew your eyes. Your vision's going to be a bit dim for the next few hours until you adjust." She was vaguely aware of being held. Carried. Not slung over someone's shoulder like a sack of potatoes, but gingerly, like the princess out of a storybook. It was humiliating. Taeyang would never let her live it down if he saw her like this. Still, she'd take humiliation over death any day. A scroll clicked. She whined. Naruto, no. Naruto, yes. Low laughter filled her ears, pitched to Carrie. Stay alive and I'll delete this picture when we get back to Patch. Summer absolutely growled at him. Because you see, she knew that voice. You really came for me. Course I did. He drawled. Couldn't let my favorite daughter-in-law die now, could I? Summer huffed and snuggled down into his arms. Taeyang's dad had always struck her as a little off. Her beloved blonde brawler had once claimed a distant relation to Nicholas Schnee before. She had laughed at the time, thinking it was some sort of joke. Only it wasn't, because Nicholas wasn't really Nicholas at all. His real name was Naruto, and he was something far more terrifying than the founder of the SDC. But right now, she couldn't ask for a better father-in-law. Did you get my axe? Sure did. He drawled softly. I wouldn't leave your baby behind. He'd best not. She'd built that axe rifle herself. There wasn't another one like it in all of Remnant. And peaking of weapons. Girian's dead, isn't he? Her father-in-law didn't answer her question. He simply kept walking, kept carrying her. That too was answer enough. Come on, let's get you home. Yang and Ruby are waiting. You promised them you'd come back, didn't you? Right. She had to stay awake. Mustn't sleep yet. I did. Then keep your promise. She couldn't see his face properly, but she could hear his boots crunching against gravel, feel a gentle hand against her forehead as he carried her, flicking away beads of cold sweat. Gonna need you to stay awake until the fever breaks, alright. Was that why everything hurt? Okay. He rumbled a laugh. Good girl. She heard something. Blinded though she was at the moment, Summer's senses were sharp as ever. She heard a rustling noise ahead of them. Naruto exhaled softly and loudly, the long-suffering sigh of a man who had no more patience left to give today. Soon thereafter another set of footsteps reached their ears. The newcomer stopped just ahead of them. Naruto stopped suddenly. Well. If isn't Hazel Reinhardt himself. No doubt he said the words for her benefit. Hazel was here. She tensed. The man who can't feel pain. We had an agreement. A voice like a slow-moving avalanche rumbled. Yup. Definitely him. And she couldn't be more useless right now. Of all the rotten timing. Yes, we did. She couldn't see Naruto, not completely, but she could hear the smile in his voice. You lot leave the silver-eyed warriors alone, and I let Salem and Ozma play their little shadow game, killing each other over and over until the heat death of the universe, and who am I holding right here? Silence reigned supreme. Hazel, you're not mute. I taught you and your sister better than that. You're holding a silver-eyed warrior, father. Summer choked. Fa. Why, so I am. Meep. Taeyang's dad and apparently Hazel's. Sounded proper pissed right about now. What a coincidence. Was talk and her little gang not enough of an example? She heard the growl creeping into his voice, like some eldritch beast awoken after a long slumber. I'm sure Salem's told you the story by now. How I gouged out their eyeballs and served them to her with a side of salad. I really thought the lesson was well earned until you went after my daughter-in-law. He didn't sound happy now, no sir. Your sister, by marriage. Hazel sounded positively sullen. We didn't know. Neither did I. No. You didn't. Blearily, she glimpsed Naruto shaking his head, blonde bangs swaying beneath his hood. He shifted his grip on her, reaching down toward his belt. But you still tried to kill her anyway behind my back. Still thought you could get away with it while I was occupied. Which makes our agreement null and void. Here. She heard him toss something Hazel's way, heard the giant catch it with a grunt. Do me a favor and bring that box back to your mistress. I've left a message inside for her. Do that for me, and I'll let you live today. For what it's worth, I am sorry. Sorry? Naruto clicked his tongue. No, you're not. You're sorry you got caught, like that time I found you with your hand in the cookie jar. You've fallen far. Gretchen would be so disappointed in you. She heard Hazel grind his teeth. Do not say her name. You have no right. I have every right, boy. Naruto's voice had lost all semblance of kindness now. All that remained was cold steel. I'll say your sister's name whenever I please. Gretchen met her end with courage in her final moments because she knew the proper value of her life. Unlike you. And what would you know of life? You weren't there when she died. You didn't save her. I've learned to be more proactive since then. If I could bring her back, I would. Liar. Hazel roared the word and stomped forward. Summer felt Naruto shift his grip on her yet again, freeing up his other hand. That was her only warning. She had just enough time to brace herself and cling to his shoulder for dear life. Momentum yanked hard at her a moment later. Then she heard a grunt, followed by the harsh crack of someone Hazel. Hitting the ground in the night. There it is. An angry, hungry rasp rose to fill the void. I do love the smell of fear. Summer didn't dare speak. Didn't dare draw attention to herself. Not now. Not after those words. Not so sure of yourself now, are you? I know more of life and death than you could possibly imagine. She heard his boot stomp down, grinding against something. She didn't want to imagine what. Gretchen sold hers dearly, fighting for others until the bitter end, and her memory is the only reason you still draw breath. Footsteps crunched against the gravel and belatedly Summer realized they were moving. That Naruto's blurry shape was actually walking with her, leaving Hazel behind. She wouldn't want me to kill you. Don't make me. You think this is over? Hazel braided this back out to him. You've changed nothing. This won't stop me. I cannot feel pain. And feel pain, he says. Naruto offered a derisive snort. Everyone dies, Hazel. Just as everyone feels pain. There's all kinds. Mental, spiritual, physical. You don't even know what true pain is. You're just an arrogant boy who thinks he's immortal. I'll leave you with one last bit of advice. Everyone thinks they'll be the one to defeat me. But no one's escaped me yet. Talk didn't. Tyrion didn't. Watts won't. If you get in my way, you'll be next. You, and whatever poor pawn Salem sends my way. Tell her, Hazel. Tell her I'm awake. Tell her the game has changed. He walked away with a whistle. Summer shivered and tucked herself into his chest. She'd never felt more powerless in her life. She never wanted to feel this way again. You'll be alright, Naruto stopped whistling for a moment to pat her searing forehead. His hand was cool against her feverish skin. Just need to pick someone up in Argus, then we'll be on our way to Patch. Won't even take half an hour. The whistle pervaded the clearing. It was a merry little thing, one Ruby Rose knew all too well. A gentle melody that had lulled her to sleep more times than she could count. One that had the 5-year-old looking up from her toys in the yard with a giddy grin. Silver eyes straight toward the trees. Every time she heard that whistle she got excited because it meant he was nearby. She glimpsed red eyes in the gloom but felt no fear. Because no Grim ever came near their house. This was the safest place on Patch, after all. Sure enough, he stepped out of the brush. She leaped to her feet. Grandpa. Froze, now. Because there, leaning against his shoulder. Ruby perked up. Mommy. Oh, wait, Grandpa was carrying her. But who was that helping him? A tall lady wearing some kind of skull mask. No, never mind that. Mommy was hurt. Her pretty white cloak was covered in red stains that looked an awful lot like BL blue. Panic dawned. Silver eyes widened. She threw her head back and wailed at the top of her lungs. Daddy. Yang came barreling out of the house like an angry bear. Yang was only a step behind. Ruby. What's wrong, sweetie? She thrust a finger toward Summer. Daddy saw Grandpa a second later. He said a few naughty words. Yang covered her ears so she didn't hear the rest. But she did see Daddy run toward Grandpa to help carry Mommy and bring her into the house. Grandpa tousled Yang's hair as they slipped past, which made her big sister squirm, which gave her a chance to wriggle free, scamper after them and hear a few words. Not her blood. Most of it's Tyrion's. That's good to hear. Where are you going? To have a word with Ozma. Grandpa laid Mommy on the couch. Daddy frowned at Grandpa for some reason. I think you meant Osmond. I know what I said, son. Maria's going to stay here for a bit. She'll help train the girls. Daddy looked nervous. That might be for the best. If they came for Summer. Then they'll come for Ruby. Ruby tried to follow him. The masked woman came round the corner and snatched her up by the scruff of the neck. Easy, there, Squirt. They're busy. Maria. Grandpa tutted. Drop the girl. I told you to train her, not break her. The slender silver eyes woman sighed. Yes, Gramps, sorry Gramps. Ruby blinked. She blinked real hard. 3 times, in fact. Gramps. There could be only one conclusion. New auntie? Yay. Someone had been here. Ozma knew at the moment the elevator doors opened. There was a silence in his tower. Or rather, a lack thereof. An unnatural stillness bordering on the supernatural. As if someone or something had sucked the life right out of the air, leaving it dry and arid. He felt the hairs on the back of his neck rise when he inhaled. He could still breathe, which suggested there was oxygen to be had. And yet no one emerged to challenge him. Hello? He ventured into the silence. Is anyone there? No one answered him. Of course they didn't. There was nowhere to hide in his office save behind his desk, and had anyone been foolish enough to do so, he would have seen them from here. Nor did he sense spells or traps of any kind. The gears of his tower continued to tick ever onward as they always did. Was he growing paranoid in his old age? Perhaps. Shaking his head, he sat behind his desk and went to work. There were reports to grade, reconnaissance to read, plans to make. The war against Salem ground ever onward. She had been strangely silent after that failed attack on Summer. He still didn't know who saved her. Crow might need to risk another scouting incursion into the Grimlands. Tutting softly to himself, he shuffled his papers and raised his mug to his lips. Odd. The hot chocolate in his cup was cold. Had it lost its heat so quickly? A low whistle sang through the air. Ozma felt his shoulders slump even as he sagged in his seat. Ah. It was that time again, was it? How quickly the years flew by. He'd heard that infernal whistle so many times now and yet somehow it never failed to terrify him. It always arrived when he least expected it, bringing mindless dread in its wake. When he looked up, he was standing there. He'd not come through the elevator, or the window, or even the floor. He was simply waiting for him, sickles in hand. He didn't need to look into the shadows of that dark cowl to know who was looking back. Those wretchedly bright eyes told a story all their own. Well, well. He pushed himself upright in his chair and snatched up his cane. If it isn't Death himself. Brandishing his weapon, he snapped off a salute. Come to collect me again, have you? I'm afraid I won't go quietly. But you already know that, don't you? The hooded figure lunged with inhuman speed and he glimpsed blonde hair beneath the cowl. Ozma barely parried a sickle with his cane. The blow rattled his arm right down to the bones. He retaliated with a ripest only for another to whistle in at his eye. He swayed aside for all the good it did him. It swept in without fail, punching right through his aura like it wasn't even there to rake across his cheek, drawing a bloody red furrow just below his right eye. He staggered back and touched a hand to his face. The wound was slow to heal, even with his aura full. It was him after all, then. He knew a few semblances that allowed one to cut through aura, but no one else could inflict such an injury. No time to savor his realization. His attacker caught his cane and smacked him with a sickle, bloodying his face yet again. A fist followed through to bloody his lip. Stars flashed across his vision and he bit his tongue, the pain of which loosened his grip and sent his weapon tumbling through the air. It landed in the blonde's open palm. You really gotta stop losing this. He turned it over in his hand, regarding it curiously. A new one? How much energy do you have stored up this time? Ozma thumbed a thin line of blood from the corner of his mouth. Enough to eradicate an obscenely large grim and to make you bleed. Confident. The ghost of a smile touched his would-be killer's lips and he whistled, an actual whistle this time, and not that terrifying lullaby he'd heard more times than he could count. I thought you would have learned by now. I can't bleed. Not anymore. He raised his gaze to look at him. Bleak red eyes blinked back at him, dark and slitted. He stared into the abyss and the abyss stared back. There was still a man in there, but he'd been hollowed out by his great task, the purpose to which he'd set himself so long ago. He was more than death. He was the balance. And something had angered him. Ozma tried to move, only to find his legs rooted to the floor. What's wrong? The hooded man tutted. Lives flashing before your eyes. Of course they were. They always did whenever death came for him, without fail. Some of those lives had been good. Others were not. He regretted a great many things, or things he'd failed to do. Errors he'd made. Lives he'd failed to save. After all, he'd made more mistakes than any man, woman, or child. Death flung the cane down at his feet. Pick it up. For an awful moment, Ozma couldn't. His arm wouldn't obey. Pick it up. Ozma forced himself forward through the fear and snatched his treasure weapon up just in time to parry another death blow. 5 times he warded him off, defending but refusing to attack. The moment he saw an opening he took it. Not to strike, but to backpedal. I would ask that you do not kill me this time, Naruto. He flung up an arm, hissing now as a bloody cut opened upon his sleeve. Or do you prefer Nicholas these days? Much to his surprise, his foe actually paused. Naruto will do. But. Miracle of miracles, he was actually willing to converse for once. Their last meeting hadn't ended on the best of terms and with him nailed to the wall. That had been an admittedly short reincarnation. His own fault for provoking him in the first place. He'd said something he shouldn't have and paid the price for it. But he could not afford to die so frivolously here, not today. I've done so much good in this incarnation. He chose his words carefully, wary of setting the entity before him off. The kingdoms have never been stronger. So you say, Ozpin. Or would you prefer Ozma? He threw the words back in his face. Is Ozpin even in there anymore? Ozma opened his mouth to answer. Lie and I take your tongue. He is not. Naruto tilted his head. And when did you consume him? Just last year. Ozma hung his own a little at the memory. He was a good man and a friend. I was not worthy of his trust or his companionship. Another innocent consumed by the curse forced upon him, another life lost in this eternal war. Sometimes he wondered what happened to them all. Did they die and reincarnate as he did? Perhaps they went to an afterlife of their own after his soul consumed theirs. Or did they simply cease to exist? Dwelling on such thoughts often proved painful. His killer clicked their tongue. Better answer this time. Are you going to spare me for once? A shrug. Maybe. Then why continue this song and dance? You know I won't die. Not really. Because, the blonde before him drawled softly, you remind me of someone. His name was Orochimaru. He took lives to extend his own, too. A sickle flicked out, slashing across a leg and driving him down to a knee. As far as I'm concerned, the only difference between you two is that he did it deliberately. You didn't ask for this. But it doesn't change what you do. What you always do. What you're cursed to do. So you are here to kill me after all. Death tugged back his hood. For the first time in 50 years he glimpsed the man beneath. Cold eyes gazed back at him, framed by spiky hair going silver and dimpled by smiling whiskered cheeks. His eyes weren't red. Not anymore. What makes you think I'm here to kill you? Ozpin rubbed his cheek. His wound was still bleeding, but it was closing, albeit slowly. Then what was that? A greeting. A reminder and a test. He frowned at him. Of what? To see if you still value your life and if you kept your skills sharp. Have I? No. The answer stung his pride more than he cared to admit. You've gotten rusty. You were stronger the last 2 times I killed you. That did more than sting, that irked him. I haven't been in combat for some time. And whose fault is that? The blonde wagged a finger his way. Naruto, please. I had hoped we might talk. Nothing to talk about. I know you take a dim view on immortality. Do you? A sickle came up to tickle the underside of his chin. You and Salem have been annoying me for centuries now. Do you remember why? Careful. He must be careful here. Ozma raised his hands to show himself harmless. Because we laugh in the face of death. No. The sickle bit into his chin, leaving another crimson line there. Because you waste your lives and rarely learn. Now you've cost me Hazel. Hazel. Naruto stepped in, face set in a snarl. He could have done so much good for this world. He could have been a hero among heroes, and then Gretchen died. She died hard, but she still died. For you. Now he won't stop trying to kill you unless I kill him. Do you have any idea how annoying that is? Killing one of your own? For what it's worth, you have my condolences. I didn't know her training mission would end that day. Naruto's sickle fell. At least you learn from your mistakes when I kill you. Sometimes. He stared at him for a long moment, considering him. Still keeping senseless secrets from your allies? I. Remember what I said about lies. He closed his mouth, unwilling to risk a false answer. The silence is your answer. Death tutted at him softly. You'll need to work on that in the future. Leonardo is a traitor, by the by. His heart hitched. What? No. That's impossible. Leo is a good man, a decent man. A cowardly man. Naruto interjected. He's serving Salem these days. How did you think your favorite silver-eyed warrior came under attack so quickly in Mistral? She's alive because of me. If I hadn't been there. Another question nagged him. Are you going to kill Leo? The blonde brow rose, quirking at the foolish question. What do you think? Fair enough. He heaved a sigh. I'll put some flowers on his grave when the time comes. At least make it quick. The blonde's expression said he wouldn't. As good witch in. Ozma released a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding and slumped against his desk. If he was asking after Glinda, that meant he might live a little while longer. Hopefully. She'd hardly go out with him if he got blood all over the tower. Still, he couldn't quite resist the urge to needle him. Still hung up on her, are you? We had an agreement. I don't talk about your ex-wife, you don't talk about my love life. Fair. Given the amount of your descendants running around, I expect we'll have rather interesting class at Beacon in 10 years' time. Perhaps. Naruto clicked his tongue. Now stop distracting me. Where is she? Ozma stood a little straighter under that baleful gaze. Can't you sense her? I'd prefer you save me the trouble of tracking her down. The elevator doors dinged behind him. Ozpin. Someone triggered the silent alarm and oh, dear. Aha. Naruto pivoted in place, crooning softly. Speak of the witch and she shall appear. Linda made a gagging noise. Why are you here? Away went the sickles, folding in on themselves to vanish within his cloak. He ran a hand through his hair, banishing the blood there, plastering a charming smile across his whiskered cheeks. It was almost frightening how quickly he went from a cold killer to a grinning ladies' man. Ozma could never hope to understand and frankly, he didn't want to. If he was a god like the brothers, he was a many-faced one. Each facade capable of dealing destined death to whomever irked him and his. Would you do me the honor of joining for dinner tonight, Miss Good Witch? She planted one fist on her hip. You're persistent. I'll give you that. Naruto beamed her way. That didn't sound like a no. That depends. Her bespectacled gaze slid to Ozma. Will you kill him if I refuse? Death shrugged one shoulder. We both know it won't stick yet. True, but it would be an annoyance. I'd rather not deal with the paperwork or run the academy in his stead. Ozma snorted. Thanks ever so much for your loyalty, Glinda. With all due respect, sir, shut up. I'm not in the mood. Naruto chuckled but didn't approach. He knew better. So is that a yes? She tutted softly. You'll get one's chance. I'll send you my address, pick me up tomorrow at 7. Don't be late. RP said, his second in command strutted back to the elevator, hip swing. It opened for her and closed just as quickly. In a matter of moments she was gone. Ozma shook his head. I can't believe you actually succeeded this time. When he looked back, Naruto was nowhere to be seen. He shivered a little. How does he do that? Ozma laid a trembling hand on his desk and stifled a sigh into his mug. The hot cocoa was still cold, but the act of drinking masked his nerves. Death could be such an inconvenience at times, but Naruto was right. It hadn't stuck yet. Sooner or later it would. Each time Naruto killed him, he stayed dead a little longer. He was learning. It was only a matter of time, now. There had been a time when he reincarnated instantly upon his death. Smooth. Seamless. That felt like an eternity ago. Now it took it a full 5 minutes. 300 seconds, spent in the void, each one a bitter reminder of the end he'd suffered. Each death only made it worse, and that gap would only grow larger. One of these days, he would die for real. And that whistle would be the last thing he heard. He wondered if he would welcome that day when it came around for his last life. Idle as a rhyme. How did you become so strong, grandfather? Bit of an accident, Weiss. My joy in life always came from protecting and serving others. I never really wanted to become well death. So how did you? Bit of a long story, that. Listen, Weiss. A day may come when you feel you're not strong enough. A day when you feel small. A day when you fail. But that's alright. Failure makes us stronger. Whether that means following in my footsteps or running the SDC, that's your choice. Until then, this gift will be like a castle, protecting you. Eventually, however, you yourself will become a castle that will protect others. And that will make me quite proud indeed. Should I castle just like you did, then? Ha! That's right. Inside your heart, build the biggest and most noble castle you can. Build it together with the friends you'll one day meet. You never know. You might meet them sooner than you think. Wise words. Fear is here. Welcome home, Hazel. Salem knew something was wrong at once. If only because Hazel flinched when she said the words. Nevertheless, the silent giant bent his knee before her. I come bearing a gift, my queen. Salem tilted her head. A gift. There was a box tucked under his right arm. He offered it to her now. It was given to me, for you. She accepted it with a frown. By whom? I would rather not say. Her smile soured. Leave me. Hazel obeyed all too readily. That was her first warning. Salem eyed her gift intently, considering it as one might a ticking time bomb. Immortal though she was, she couldn't deny a silent pang of curiosity. Hazel wouldn't dare betray her. He knew full well that she could not be slain. Any treachery on his part would be pointless. No matter. She was immortal. Whatever trap lay within, she would survive. Salem opened the box. Furion's severed head stared back at her. Calm. She must be calm. Wait. There was a note taped to his cheek. She unfurled it and read its contents. 3 words awaited her within. You were warned. Her eyes flashed. No. She hissed. No, no, no. Salem shrieked in fury and flung Tyrion's head against the nearest wall. He was a gentleman. The realization startled Glinda. If only because she'd expected more from him after all this time. In truth, Naruto cleaned up rather nicely when he wasn't butchering his enemies. More than that, he'd been on his best behavior. There were untoward actions on his part, no overt gestures or suggestions of sex, quite the opposite, really. He was the very picture of decorum. He treated her to a simple meal, talked with her for a time, then walked her home after dinner. She expected some sort of move then, a play on her perhaps, but none came. He was just so old-fashioned. She couldn't tell if she liked that or not. It was maddening. Well, here we are. Once they stood just outside their door, Naruto took her hand in his, raised it to his lips, and kissed the back of her knuckles. Until next time. Baffling. Utterly baffling. He didn't make a lick of sense. As P said, the immortal let her go and stepped back. Glinda found herself calling out after him. Where are you headed next? Mistral, then Atlas. His smirk was smug, that of a hunter who had found fresh prey. I have a few debts to collect and old friends to visit. She quirked a brow at him. Going to see one of your grandchildren? One, yes. Glinda counted herself lucky she wasn't one of them. It would have felt far too strange. Even now she still found herself struggling with the concept of dating someone who may well be hundreds of years old. If they shared blood, no, just no. She had her limits, lines she wouldn't cross. This was one of them. Thankfully she needn't worry about that. When will you return to Vale? She cursed herself for asking, but it was too late, the words were in the wind. In a few days. His eyes twinkled. Might I have the pleasure of your company when I return? Heat crawled up the back of her neck. What did you have in mind? Perhaps a walk in the park? Said Heat reached her face now turning her cheeks a rosy pink. Ah. She understood now his game now. Naruto was in no rush. None at all. This would be a slow burn. How refreshing. He wasn't going to make a move until she did. She couldn't remember the last time she dated someone like that. Who would crack first? Him? Or her? For once, Glinda didn't know and the uncertainty excited her. I'd like that. His eyes flashed. Then he vanished in a streak of gold. Glinda sighed and leaned against her door. An enigma. He was a complete and utter enigma. Still she'd given him one chance already, hadn't she? Perhaps she might see her way to giving him a second and a third. Death was coming. Here. For him. On this night. Lionheart knew it in his bones. He knew it, dreaded it, feared it in equal measure. Just as he'd known he always would. Knowing did not help him prepare. Knowing only made things worse. So much worse. Ignorance was bliss. Ignorance was always bliss. There were monsters in the dark and he found himself ruining the day he ever learned of them. Even now the shadows seemed to stretch out for him, trying to trip him up with their questing fingers. Leo kept his head down and kept walking. He'd packed his things, wiped his records, and chartered himself a private bullhead to the distant wastes of Vacuo. No one went to Vacuo these days. He'd live a new life, under a new name. No more Salem, no more Osborne. Just had to make it to the airport. He was close now. So very close. Why was he on the ground? Had he tripped? He blinked, baffled, and looked down. His right hand came aware ed. The sickle jutted out of his stomach, having pierced the small of his back. And he heard the whistle. Red dawned. No. Someone spun him around. A low grow filled the air. He glimpsed red eyes in the gloom. Moonlight danced off bloody steel. There were no clever words. No puns. Nothing. Simply his end. Lionheart flung up an arm to ward him off. Silent steel sheared it off at the elbow. He screamed. No, wait. Please. Beth waited for no one. Bloodstains spattered the alley. You're leaving the tribe. Raven shoved the last of her belongings into a duffel bag, checked Omen at her hip, and grunted once. Boss, you can't. Red eyes rolled as she ignored the man pleading with her and stalked out her tent. More endless bleeding. It hadn't changed an hour ago and it wouldn't change now. She had to leave the tribe. She didn't want to, but she must. Word had reached her of Leonardo Lionheart's grisly death 3 days ago. Sudden being the operative word. Someone had put his head on a spike outside the gates of Haven and written a warning in his blood. If she stayed here she would die. He was back. You know why? A nasty little voice hissed in her head. You broke your promise. He will come for you. Kill you. She fought down a shiver. Yes, he would. That one kept his word. Ever and always. So she had to run. Far, far, far away from here before it was too late. Best to leave now at dusk. He couldn't track her in the dark, surely. Even he wasn't that skilled. Vale wouldn't do, Osborne was there, and she'd never be safe here in Mistral. Atlas, maybe. Vacuo. No, screw Vacuo. Nobody liked Vacuo. Vacuo was the pits. Menagerie, maybe. She'd run there if it meant getting away from her father-in-law. Caught between her two great fears. An immortal grim monster that couldn't die and a death-dealing destroyer. What could she do but run? She'd have to cut her hair, maybe even change her name, but she could figure that out on the way. For now she must flee. The tiny hand grabbed at her wrist. You can't leave us. What will we do without you? Raven scoffed. Live normal lives. Die. I don't care. But I'm your apprentice. Raven looked down at the little girl grasping her arm. Something stirred in her cowardly heart. Vernal was the same age as Yang. There would be no place for her in the tribe. She knew full what happened to helpless little girls with no one to protect them. Then as your master, let me do you one last favor. Say hello to Taeyang for me. Wah? She cut a portal through the air with her blade, grabbed the small child by the scruff of her neck and tossed her through. Then she closed it behind her. There. She'd done her good deed for the year. Vernal would live if nothing else. Hey. One of her tribesmen bridled. What about the rest of us? She shrugged and walked away. Too bad, so sad don't care. A harsh click echoed behind her. Sloppy, she chided herself as she felt cold steel pressed against the back of her head. In her prime, in her right state of mind she never would have let one of these bastards get the drop on her. Not that it mattered. She had aura and she most assuredly didn't have the time to deal with a few surly jagoffs who didn't know when to run for the hills. She heard the safety being thumbed off. You think you can just walk away from us, boss? Her eyes blazed with crimson flame. Yes, I do. Frost fled from her fingertips in a singular surge to render the stupid bastard a human ice sculpture, pistol and all. Will. She flipped them off over her shoulder and made for the gate. "You're on your own." "So that's it?" Someone shouted at her back. "You're just going to run?" Another took up the clowl. "Without us, you will always live a life of..." The figure stepped out the shadows ahead of her. "Fear." Raven stumbled backward. There was no whistle. No warning. He simply appeared. "Even after all these years, you're still afraid, Raven. Some things never change." Her blood ran cold. He was every bit as terrible and terrifying as she remembered and utterly unchanged. He hadn't aged a day since she'd saw him last. Somehow that made it worse. He loped toward her with lazy grace, wearing that small smile of his, sickles in hand. "No. Not him. Not here." She couldn't speak at first. She didn't dare. She could only walk backward away from him. "Sorry to crash the party with your tribe, or should I say your corpses." He casually slit the throat of a nearby bandit as he walked past. "You know why I'm here, Raven." One of her men rushed him and lost their head for it as he swiped backwards. "I warned you what would happen if you broke my son's heart." His words turned her cold blood to purest ice. "You didn't listen. Now I've come for you. But I'm still alive." "Are you?" He tilted his head and for a wild moment she imagined a wild wolf staring down a flightless bird. "You had a good life." Another bandit fell over as he gutted them. "You didn't value it. You're not going to change. So in lieu of a long-winded speech, why don't I do us both a favor and kill you now?" "That's not fair." A sickle flashed before her face, hooking itself painfully in her left nostril. "And what would you know of fairness, I'm stronger now. I've become a maiden. And you're weak as ever. You were gone. I has some business to attend to. But you lot," he looked past her. "Your tribe isn't even worth dirtying my blades." His eyes pulsed. The wind keened. Dozens of men and women pitched over, dead. Naruto clicked his tongue. Run, little bird." Raven did. She flung herself through the trees. Her mind went mad. She saw him in the branches. Looming behind the trees. Semblance. She had to use her semblance. Taeyang would be furious with her, but anything was better than. A hand burst out of the dark and seized her by the hair, hauling her back. "I've enjoyed the chase, Birdie." He pulled back his hood, freeing his hair, "but I think we've reached the end now, you and I." He swung down at her throat. "Wait. Mercy." The sickle paused. "I'm afraid." She warded one hand before her face to fend him off. "I've always been afraid. Of you, of Oz, of Salem, of getting attached, of everything. I'm sorry." Steel descended. There was no pain. Raven creaked an eye open. Naruto loomed over her. "Well done." She gulped. "You said you were going to kill me." "And I did." He granted her a death's head smile. "I killed the old you. Who are you now? Well, that remains to be seen." "But why?" "I believe in second chances." In a flash the sickle hooked around her throat. "There will not be a third. Make something better of your life than this or we'll meet again." He vanished into so much mist. Raven collapsed with a sob. "I will, I promise." Shock drank. Then he drank some more. He kept drinking. And drinking. The wise man once said salvation could be found at the bottom of a bottle. If it was there he had yet to find it. And so he kept drinking. One of the benefits of being obscenely wealthy. He had his own bar in the manor, outfitted with all manner of wine, whiskey, even vodka when he was feeling courageous. But he did not feel brave today. If anything, he was quite tired. Even the finest drink couldn't wash away the migraine beating at his brain. He'd had an awful day. Blasted White Fang. Filthy animals. Why couldn't they let an honest man make an honest wage? Another round Klein. He thumped the now empty green glass bottle on the counter. "Give me the strongest vintage you have." "As you wish, sir." The man in question bowed. "I keep the strong wine in the back." But rather than retrieve it, the butler dithered. "Sir, if I may speak frankly." "You already are." He took the plunge. "Perhaps you should consider retiring." Shock nearly brained him with the bottle outright. It was only his atrocious aim that caused him to miss. It shattered against the wall, spraying glass everywhere. Klein didn't bat an eyelash. He was butler to little Weiss first and foremost, such outbursts seldom fazed him these days. "All this drinking is adverse to your health, to say nothing of your hair." Shock scowled at him. "Get me that bottle and shut your damn mouth." He hiccuped once. "One more word of you and I'll have you sacked. Do you hear me? Sacked." Klein did just that. Shock all but tore the bottle from his grasp. "Ah, an Elysian vintage." He uncorked it with a flick of his thumb. "Me?" He scoffed at his surly flushed reflection within the blue glass. "Retire." Sure, profits were down, his family wouldn't listen to him, and shareholders were unhappy, but things would bounce back. They always did. "I'll never retire." He hissed down into the counter. "The SDC is mine. Mine. I bled for this. I suffered for this. I earned this." No one will take it from me. A low whistle sang through the air. Every hair on his body, his mustache included, bristled. He'd heard that whistle once before at his wedding. Hadn't he? He turned, startled to find that he was no longer alone. A hooded figure sat beside them, their face hidden by a heavy black cowl, still whistling. The melody tickled the back of his brain. Why did it fill him with dread? He couldn't remember. He thought he might, but his mind was far too fogged by DRNK. Why? What had he forgotten? Without warning, the whistling stopped. Well, Jacques glimpsed the ghost of a smile within the shadows of that hood. If isn't Jacques Gel himself. Jacques knocked the bottle back and drank deeply. It's Schnee, now. How did you get in here? HMM. The stranger hummed. Even after all these years, you haven't changed. Much to his confusion, those words warped into a low chortle. You just dyed your hair. There's the same mustache, the same attitude and of course, the same suit. He clicked his tongue in mild admonishment. My compliments to your tailor. He wasn't nearly sober enough for this. Do I know you? This is private property. I could have you thrown out of here in an instant. You could try. I wouldn't recommend that. The stranger flipped the hood back. And he saw. It wouldn't end well for you. No. Not here. And not now. Hello Jacques. Nicholas Schnee smiled back at him, blonde hair threaded through with silver, almost white as his teeth. Klein, you can stay. The rest of you? A lean card flashed between his fingers. Out. Take the night off on me. You'll be paid triple for the rest of the week. Footsteps scampered as every servant fled for their lives. In his drunken stupor, Jacques didn't have the heart to try and stop them. They were wise to flee. Because they remembered the lord of this manor well as did he. Nicholas Schnee, or Naruto as he sometimes called himself, had a certain reputation for inspiring both love and fear in those close to him. Jacques felt the latter now. Nicholas had once said they loved the smell of fear. That it was intoxicating. Feeling it was worse. He couldn't blink. Couldn't move. Couldn't speak. A bead of sweat birthed itself upon his brow, ran down his cheek and dripped down his chin. It turned to ice by the time it struck the ground. Cold. Why was the air so cold around him? He shouldn't be surprised. This man could move faster than the naked eye, cross continents with ease and so much more. He'd once seen him shatter an iceberg with one punch. By that mark a bit of cryokinesis seemed downright mundane. A finger tapped down on the counter. So, he took a long drink. How have you been? Stilling his hammering heart, he faced himself to speak. I have been well, father. Well, his father-in-law, but still. Have you now? The glass came down, the drink within barely touched. That's not what I heard. Meep. I gave you and Willow the SDC because I had neither the time nor the patience for it anymore. Because I thought you could help my daughter run it well. Red eyes watched a whiskey swirling in the glass, a lone ice cube rapidly thawing within. And you did. For a time. Jacques squeaked. Profits have never been higher. We both know I don't care about profits. A finger traced the lacquered wood counter. I care about my family. You've behaved yourself with Willow. His eyes never left the tiny square of ice, watching intently as it began to shrink. Which is good. I told you what would happen if you laid a hand on her or your children. But you haven't been a proper husband or father, either. Naruto continued to tap the counter with one finger. Tap. Are you still behaving, Jacques? Tap. Tap. Why yes of course, I am. Tap. 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 He stood now. What did I tell you about lying? I'm not lying. I did what you said. I made things better. Then why are the White Fang attacking your shipments? His voice carried a dangerous rumble. And why haven't I seen Willow or any of my grandchildren since I arrived here? Do I need to take another finger? It's not my fault they're like this. The words burst from him in a wail. Willow won't listen to me. Winter did as she wished. She left for the military soon as she could. Weiss wants to become a huntress. Whitley wants to be just like you. And did it ever occur to you to ask why? Sir, please, he gulped, I tried to take charge. A hand squeezed his shoulder painfully. Do you feel in charge? Grandfather? A small voice cooed from the doorway. Is that really you? Aha! Nicholas Naruto. Pivoted atop his seat, all smiles. There's my little snowflake. Gimme a hug. Weiss giggled and launched herself at him. Naruto released him to catch her and swing her round. Jacques had never appreciated his daughter more than this moment. Because in holding her, the Schnee patriarch let go of him, which in turn gave him time to scurry away to safety. Where's your brother and mother? Practicing. She chirruped up at him as he tousled her hair. I can use my semblance now. Is that so? Her head bobbed, setting her little ponytail swaying. I summoned a knight yesterday. I see. Naruto's gaze snapped his Jacques. The latter fought down a flinch. It wasn't his fault. She wanted to fight in Armagigas. Oh, yes. He knew precisely what the women of the family were practicing deep within the Schnee manor. Foul techniques. Summoning. Magic. Chakra. The seed was strong. As were the Schnees. He was not. He'd only married into the family after all. He was only a man, one with aura to be sure, but aura meant nothing to them. Fire and damnation. Had he truly known just what bloodline he was marrying into, he would have run far away. It was too late for that now. He'd made a deal with the devil, with death himself. There could be no escape now. Even if he perished, he would still serve. Lovely. Naruto scooped Weiss up into his arms and let her climb onto his back. Why don't we pay them a visit? Oh, but first Jacques. The former gel whimpered. Yes. Earlier today, I told a little bird that I believe in second chances. A cold blue eye gleamed over his shoulder as he walked away. You know what will happen if we meet again. Jacques slid down to the ground. Klein handed him a bottle, leaving him to stew in his misery. Jacques popped the cork and drank. All the whiskey in the world wasn't enough for this. The Reaper's legacy. Mediation was key. Willow found peace in it these days. It brought her some small semblance of comfort between her daily duties. As a mother of 3 children, it did much to keep her sane. It was a time when she could simply close her eyes, shut down and let her mind wander in the dark. She sat down, folded her legs beneath her, and exhaled softly. Let the world in her room fall away. Poise. Perfection. Such was what it meant to be a Schnee. Inheritors of a bloodline dating back to a time when the people of Remnant were not 4 kingdoms, but endless warring peoples. Willow took pride in that. And why shouldn't she? Her father was death. And she didn't mean it metaphorically or rhetorically or poetically or theoretically or in any other fancy way. He was death. Straight up. And she was his daughter. She had a right to be bloody proud, damn it. For you see, Willow wasn't a huntress or even a shinobi, unlike some of his descendants. No, she was more than that. Every Schnee was. Just as their semblance allowed them to pull life from death and summon those they'd slain to aid them in battle, so too were they more than most. They were reapers. Death was their duty, life their namesake, and no one knew. Truly it was a thankless duty, a terrible task, but someone had to keep the balance. Perhaps once upon a time, long ago, father might have been human. Before he took up his great task and became something more. Willow didn't know the when or why and certainly not the how, but frankly she didn't care. She had no memories of her mother which suggested unpleasantness or an end she dearly didn't want to contemplate, and father, daddy, had raised her into the woman she now was. She owed her life to him as much as Atlas did. If not for him, the kingdom would still be a struggling outpost in the north. He'd found dust, founded the SDC, even run it for a time, until Jacques married into the family. The thought of him lent her smile a wicked edge. Ah, yes. Jacques Gel, that wretched little worm, he who once wished to wrest control of the SDC for himself, utterly unaware of what she truly was. More fool he. That Jacques had been dead for quite some time now. Only a broken shell remained. He'd been blinded by her beauty and the lean, the promise of power and all the prestige that came with taking over the company. Perhaps had he known father was death incarnate, the living representation of the great hereafter, he would have run screaming for the hills. But he hadn't and he didn't, and so they'd allowed him to live in ignorance. The deception had been useful, amusing even, in some of her more morbid moments. By the time Gel realized the truth that his supposedly weak wife was terror incarnate, it was too late. He was locked in, trapped, with no escape. No one would see the truth. No one. And so he took to drinking, the poor fool. Really, it just wasn't any fun tormenting him anymore. She had contemplated killing him once or twice, putting the little man out of his misery, but ultimately decided against it. He was of more use to her alive than dead. His resources were useful, his contacts necessary and his network well. She'd subverted that long ago. Besides, she needed him relatively intact if she wanted to keep having children. Now there was a pleasant thought. Little Whitley might like having a baby brother or 2. Perhaps 3. The Schnee bloodline must continue at all costs. All this at the expense of poor Jacques. She almost pitied him. Almost. Willow knew her family wasn't the only one to bear the blood, of course. While the Schnees were blessed with their inherited semblance, others manifested unique abilities. Some could see mystic lines of death. The precise point where to cut something damn near anything. And kill it stone dead. Others were more mundane in their talents. She'd heard tell of a curious clan of blonde swordmasters, stalwart champions who could face down entire armies of Grimm with sword and shield alone, titans to make even Elder Grimm quail. And then there were other, stranger tales in the Badlands of Remnant. A place where the line between fact and fiction all too easily blurred. Why, just the other day her dear spymaster had spun her a most curious yarn. The story of a wanted fugitive, a girl who massacred her mother and father with nothing but her voice. Apparently this girl could kill with a word and so had sworn a vow of silence since. No one knew where she was now. A pity. She would have liked to recruit her. Doubtless were others like her, scattered across the wastes, more than father could ever hope to find. They were those who kept the balance. Who worked in the shadows, preventing the grim from overwhelming humanity, but also humanity from overtaking the whole of Remnant. Just as there could be no death without life, so too could be no life without death. And the world didn't know. Remnant spun on in its ignorance, blissfully unaware of the titans that walked in their midst. They assumed it to be the work of semblances or magic, myth even. They knew nothing. Perhaps that was for the best. Father preferred it that way. She knew he was a bit of an odd duck goose. In certain circles. But none of that mattered to her. Father was father. He had been the one constant in her life since she was small, her first memory and one day her last. Vishni. A voice plucked her from her musing. Alexis. Her maid possessed impeccable timing as always. A letter arrived for you just this morning. Another one already. She kept her eyes closed but did noting to hide her smile. How lovely. Did a dusty old bird happen to deliver it? Why, yes. The young woman sounded confused. How did you know? I have my ways. Willow tutted softly. Crow was reliable as ever, it seemed. She ought to buy him a drink sometime. I trust you left it on my desk with the other correspondence. I did, ma'am. Her smile grew another inch. But girl. She'd have to reward her later in private. The thought of it almost had her licking her lips and at once her mind began to wander. No, don't think about Alexis's full lips and that long red hair right now. Focus. Alliances asides, she rather enjoyed her dialogue with her half-brother Taeyang these days. Communicating via letter was far more entertaining than a scroll call. She disdained such technology. It had no place in her life. To think of it, he had 2 children of his own now, didn't he? Such darling girls. Perhaps she should visit them. They were not true Shni, not in the proper sense of the word, but they shared her blood, which made them her nieces nonetheless. The longer she entertained the idea the more appealing it became. Weiss might enjoy a vacation from Atlas, to say nothing of Whitley. Winter wouldn't want to leave the academy, but she'd fold with a bit of prodding. She always did. And it would be nice to see Summer again. Ma'am, there's something else. She heard the woman fidget. You also have a visitor. Did she now? Watts must have come to bargain again. How could one so smart be so very foolish? I shall see to them in an hour. They were most insistent. Everyone always was. They always wanted her time. Always. I'm sure they were. Willow bit back. But they will wait. That will be all, Alexis. Oh, of course, my lady. Willow listened as her maid walked away. Counted to 10. Only then did she finally deign to open her eyes and rise from her crouch, ending her meditation. Well, she supposed it was time for her morning exercises. Enough time had been wasted with that argument already. She stood and regarded a towering suit of armor across the room, set before her in the wall. To the untrained eye it was just that. A suite of armor, however large. An iron giant clad in fully heavy plate, tall enough to cast her in its shadow and heavy enough to crush her with a single blow, should it ever fall upon her. Activate. At her command the armored suit lurched to life, drew its sword and snapped off a salute. The ghost of a smile touched her face as she regarded its posture. This particular Armagigas wasn't truly alive in the traditional sense, not at all like the creature she'd slain in her youth. This one was all wires and circuits, bits and boards. Better yet, it was easily replaced, which made it the perfect training mechanism. Pietro had done his work well. Willow considered it for a moment. Commenced training protocol 9. A bit of light exercise was just the thing to burn off some stress. It nodded once and lumbered forward. Willow brought her hands up and pressed her palms together, finger to finger, then closed her eyes. Closer it came. She didn't move. Its arm rose, braving its blade in both hands. Mirror, mirror, Willow hummed a soft lullaby to herself and mustered her might. On the wall, show me who's the strongest of all. The Armagigas struck down. Her eyes snapped open, blazing blue. An arm struck the floor with a heavy thud, fingers still twitching. It wasn't her own. The poor Armagigas stumbled back, leaning to the left, unbalanced by the sudden loss of its limb. Willow smiled at it and twirled a massive scythe of gleaming ice in both hands, letting it whirl over her head before she brought it back down at her side. She'd no need for mecha-shift weapons of worthless steel. Weapons broke. Steel rusted. But a weapon forged from her very soul. That lasted forever. Ice was her weapon, and with it came the cold touch of death. Well? She tilted her head. I told you to attack. Attack me. At her command the knight reached down, retrieved its arm, and attached it once more. Within moments the limb was moving again. Fascinating. An improvement. The last unit hadn't been able to do that. Was this one being remotely controlled by that project of his? It certainly fought better. Perhaps a certain scientist was due a raise. The white glyph burst beneath her feet and she was away, skating forward on a sea of ice. Her scythe flicked out in a lazy overhand swipe. The knight managed to block with the hilt of its blade, but only because she allowed such. Truly it was no fun when they died too quickly. Robots weren't the same as a flesh and blood opponent. She felt no fear from them, no terror, nor shock. So dreadfully boring. Its blade swept in again and she swayed under it, grinning ear to ear as she skated away to safety. She didn't see the boot until it barreled into her back. Pain lanced down Willow's spine and with it, the tenuous illusion of self-control. Better. She pivoted to commend her false foe, wearing a borderline feral grin. Release restriction 6 through 9. Green light gleamed within that soulless helm. Willow lowered her stance, sweeping her scythe overhead. Any moment now there. The Armagigas didn't so much lunge at her as it did leap, bringing its blade down on her head in a rousing overhand smash. Nope. Not blocking that. Willow swept her sickle up and parried, diverting the blade harmlessly away to the right in a shower of sparks. It shattered the floor where it struck, creating a sizable crater behind before pivoting to slam the full weight of its blade against her side. For the first time since their battle had begun, Willow's face lost its smile. Fast. Very fast. Faster than it had any right to be. Strong, too. She felt her knees begin to buckle beneath such strength. Anyone else would have faltered. Not her. Not a Schnee. Never a Schnee. Rather than cling to her weapon like some foolish huntress, Willow let go of her scythe and let it shatter. Allowed the Giga's blade to sweep over her head, now. Her eyes narrowed. Gotcha. Her hands came together again, conjuring a long lance of ice between her palms. She whirled and thrust it deep through the robot's armpit. Circuits sparked within the armor. Froze now as Horfirst crept across its outer shell. She let that weapon go too, leaving it in place to step back. Willow snapped her fingers, and a pale blue glyph burst before her. A massive clawed fist burst through to strike the Armagiga's dead center in the chest. Armor warped as it stumbled back, stunned for an instant. That was all the time it took for her to summon another scythe. Willow cancelled the half-summon, no need to fully summon that thing here, and waded in, scythe singing in her hands. Father had taught her well and she put those lessons to good use. Parry again. Ripest. Hook the blade around the knight's knee and yank. The Armagigas went down with a startled grunt, hamstring in a way most machines couldn't be. When it tried to brace itself with one hand, she cut it clean off at the wrist and kicked the offending limb away and slicked the other clean off when it sought to stab her. The Armagigas limped back on its good leg, garbling gibberish. It raised what was left of its arms in what might have been surrender. Well, well. Would you look at that? Machines could feel fear after all. Fascinating. She watched a green light fade from the knight's eyes, leaving it to slump. A pity. It seemed Pietro's project didn't want to play anymore. Rather than retort, she drew in a deep breath and exhaled, expelling a cloud of cold steam with a single breath. The Armagigas froze on the spot and its pleas with, encased in ice. A single sweep of her scythe shattered it completely, rendering it motes of falling snow. Her wrist beeped and she raised her watch to regard the watch there. She'd beaten her last time by a second. Only a second. She was getting sloppy. Someone clapped behind her. Willow heard the whistle next. Her heart skipped a beat, and not for the reasons one might think. What might have been a source of fear and terror to others was one of gentle reassurance for her. A gentle lullaby, a soft song that lulled her to sleep when she was a child, a soft lilting sound. There was more to it than that. It was both a reassurance and a reminder, a promise of protection not only for her and her children, but their children and their children's children and all future Schnees to come. She turned to face and sure enough there he was. Father was home. He looked much the same as he always did. If a little more tired, his posture hiding the slightest sign of a slouch for good reason. He had Whitley on his back and Weiss clinging to his leg, each of whom were grinning ear to ear like the children were. The latter beamed up at her. Grandpa's home. Willow banished her weapon and smiled softly. I noticed, Weiss. Well, Nicole is Naruto. Schnee grinned, offering his free hand. Don't just stand there. Give your old man a hug. Willow very nearly did. Her first instinct was to leap into his arms as she often did when she was young, but she had an image to maintain even before her children. She walked into his embrace instead. Welcome home. Will you be staying long? For a few days. He kissed her forehead. I saw the fight. How about a spar? I'm curious to see how far you've come. Her eyes lit up and her blood sang. A proper fight. After that disappointment. That sounds like a lovely idea. Weiss watched mother and grandfather take their positions with bated breath. Tired though she was, she found herself admittedly somewhat torn toward the outcome. On one hand, she wanted mother to win, but on the other, she was quite curious to see grandfather could do. She'd never seen him fight before. Supposedly Winter had, but Weiss had been too young at the time to remember. Besides, thinking of her big sister made her sad. She wished Winter were here to see this. Here in the manor. With them. Why had she left? Was it something she had said? Something she did wrong? She must have done something. Why else would she refuse to see them, even during the holidays? Fight, fight, fight. Weiss sighed and shook off such thoughts, looking to Whitley, idly wishing she could share in his excitement. Her baby brother was practically vibrating in place, all but hopping from foot to foot with excitement. He young and didn't really understand why Winter had left, why she wasn't coming, but one day he would. What could she say to him? In the end, she pushed the matter back for another day. SHH. She knelt and wrapped both arms around her younger brother to hush the little scamp. They'll start in a second. Just be patient. Oh, do I have to? Whitley Schnee. Grandfather's voice cracked like a whip. Listen to your sister. The boy wilted in her arms. Yes, Grandpa. Willow hummed her approval. Good boy. Shall we begin, then? Grandfather sketched a courtly bow her way. Whenever you wish. Mother smirked. I've come up with a few new tricks since we last fought. Weiss nearly choked on her spit. They'd done this before. Grandpa grinned. Let's see them. The gravity glyph burst beneath his feet, dragging him down on a knee. He tutted softly and tumbled out of it, only to find a sheen of ice creeping up his leg. A blonde brow rose and he leaped back to tear it free. Mother met him in midair, and the world dissolved into a storm of ice and steel. It was incredible. So fast Weiss could barely keep track of them. They did not duel, they danced, and it was beautiful. Haunting. Utterly terrifying. She'd seen Mother train before. Mother was always incredible. Agile. Poetry in motion. No one could possibly touch her. Grandfather was just as fast. No, he made Mother look slow. Her scythe flicked in at his face only to be swatted aside, then he was in her face, raining down sweeping strikes with his twin sickles. Mother managed to evade the first two, took a third on the shoulder, bowled forward, took a hand from her weapon, and… Yah! Grandpa's head snapped back as she drove a heel palm under his chin. Weiss heard his teeth click together from here. He must have bit his tongue. Even little Whitley winced. But rather than get angry, Grandpa only laughed, wiped a line of blood from the corner of his mouth, and took up his stance once more. Good. He allowed. Very good. Then he was on her, sickles singing a song of steel. Now it was Mother gave ground, panicking and parrying in a way she'd never seen before. When she tried to use a glyph to speed away, he flung a scythe up, hooked it in like a fish and smashed it across her head, stunning her. Still she fought on. It did her little good. No matter what icy weapon Mother conjured, Grandpa was ready for each and every one. Sword, scythe, lance, even a giant warhammer at one point. All for naught. He dismantled her every tactic with ease. For every sweep she managed to block, another got through, and each one that did sapped her aura bit by brutal bit. She landed a few slashes of her own with her ice weapons, but Grandpa shrugged each off until, quite suddenly, he had her. A sickle swept up under Mother's chin and it was done. Yield. She gasped out, hands raised. I yield. What have I told you? He lowered his weapon and flicked her forehead. You're a jack of all trades, master of none. Branching out is all well and good, but it can only carry you so far. Remember that. If you're going to do anything worth doing, do it all the way, you know. Yes sir. Great. Much to Weiss's delight, Grandfather clapped his hands. Now then, who wants ice cream? Whitley's hand slammed up. I do, I do. Alright, then. Help your mother clean up and get your jackets. It's cold out. Whitley rushed Mother, babbling happily. Weiss did not. She looked to Grandpa, quietly curious. How did you become so strong, Grandfather? Moreover, how did she? Bit of an accident, Weiss. He patted her head and followed after them. Refusing to be left behind, she grabbed his hand and forced him to slow down for her. He did so, albeit with a soft sigh. My joy in life always came from protecting and serving others. I never really wanted to become well death. She tilted her head. So how did you? Bit of a long story, that, and one that involves a tree. Listen, Weiss. He looked down as they walked, his gaze seeking hers. A day may come when you feel you're not strong enough. A day when you feel small. A day when you fail. But that's alright. She wrinkled her nose and blinked up at him, utterly baffled. It is. Mother said Schnees are supposed to win. Always. Maybe that was why Winter left. Because she couldn't meet Mother's expectations. Does she, now? That drew a bark of laughter from him. What your mother doesn't understand is this. Failure makes us stronger. He gave her hand a tiny squeeze. Whether that means following in my footsteps or running the SDC, that's your choice. Until then this house will be like a castle, protecting you. Eventually, however, you yourself will become a castle that will protect others. And that will make me quite proud indeed. Should I build castle just like you did, then? Ha! His laughter sounded more genuine this time. That's right. Inside your heart, build the biggest and most noble castle you can. Build it together with the friends you'll one day meet. You never know. You might meet them sooner than you think. Friends? Weiss liked the sound of that. Yes, she liked it very, very much indeed. She would remember those words years later when she met a little Red Reaper. He hadn't come. Winter drilled relentlessly, snarling and slashing at her opponent with reckless abandon until they were full of holes, much like her stance. She knew she'd get a telling off for that, but she couldn't bring herself to care. Likewise, the poor bastard before her couldn't even defend themselves properly. Such was her fury. She showed them no mercy. Her blade bit into them time and time again until nothing remained. No arms. No legs. No nothing. Just a trembling torso on the floor at her feet. They quivered spasmodically beneath her gaze, unable to do anything else. The living opponent would have been dead. The poor mech beneath her probably wished it was after the damage she'd inflicted. Could you traumatize a robot? Gods, she hoped not. She'd torn at least 7 apart in the last hour, ripping and tearing with reckless abandon. And still her anger wasn't spent. Because he had not come. Tomorrow was her birthday. He'd promised. Cadet Schnee. Sir? She straightened, drawn from her maudlin thoughts. Her supervisor stared at her for a long moment, noting the mechanized corpses around her, the sweat on her brow, her disheveled state. Her uniform torn, her hair down, lanky and heavy against her damp face. She was a mess. He'd be well within his rights to reprimand her for such sloppy behavior. It wasn't Captain Ironwood, she told herself. She didn't care what anyone but him thought. The lie was hollow, even to her. You have a visitor. He said at last. I do. Her brow furrowed. Is it father again? I am not at liberty to say. He is waiting in your quarters. Her shoulders slumped with a sigh. Understood. It was him, then. That, or mother, which would be worse. She'd left to get away from her stifling expectations. When would she realize that? Probably never. She sighed. Best to get it over with. It was a long walk to her quarters. Longer still in her sorry state. Other students made way for her. She could feel their eyes on her back, hear their snide comments, taste the judgment in the air. It all pressed down on her, an invisible weight grinding against her shoulders. The snickers. The laughter. The scowls. Look at her. She's a mess. What did you expect? She's a savage. An utter brute. I hear she even got bumped up a year, the little ice queen. SHHH. Don't let her hear you say that. She'll probably attack you. Recommending her was a mistake. I don't care what Ironwood thinks. The girl's a monster. Winter sniffed and blinked once to hide her tears. They stung at her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Bah. Let the sheep bleat. She was still a Schnee however fall she might have fallen. Sticks and stones might break her bones, but she refused to let words hurt. Not now. Not ever again. She stalked back to her quarters, cursing softly. Soon enough she reached her room. A tap of her scroll against the lock and the door whooshed open before her. She stepped inside and toggled the lights. No one awaited her within. She scowled. Is this a joke? Not quite. A voice echoed behind her. Meep. Winter yelped and jumped so high her head hit the ceiling. Her skull complained most bitterly as she crashed back to the floor, leaving her to rub her aching head with a whine. Blasted strength. She could usually keep it in check for the most part, but he'd scared the life out of her. Grandfather. She rounded on the perpetrator with equal parts excitement and anger. Must you do that every time? Yes, I must. He granted her a warm smile as he stepped out the shadows. Odd. Why did he have both hands behind his back? I'd never miss my favorite granddaughter's birthday. How long have you been hiding in here? Only a few minutes, give or take. He tutted softly. Realization dawned as his words caught up with her a moment later. Her face warmed at his praise. You actually remembered. But you're early. I'm old, not senile. Here. He reached behind his back and revealed a long parcel sheathed in an azure box. I got you a gift. She quirked a pale brow. What is it? Open it and see for yourself. Curious. Winter did as she was bade and opened the box, only to find a wet shroud of cloth concealing it. Something was wrapped within. Made eager by the sight, her trembling fingers peeled the cloth back with delicate care, not wanting to damage her gift. Whatever it was, it had some weight to it. Not enough to be heavy, but it possessed a certain heft all the same. Not it, she realized. She peeled back the tarp and found herself gazing upon a pair of weapons. Beautiful black curved segmented blades, each bearing a wicked notch near the handle for some kind of advanced mecha shift. Winter suspected she knew the type she'd been asking after these all her life. She thought it a pipe dream, an idle fancy, one that she would never see realized, like so many other things. Do you like it? Grandfather asked. If not, I could always take them back. At the end of the day Winter Schnee was still a child, no matter how much she pretended not to be. They're perfect. She couldn't quite conceal the squeal that fled from her lips with the words, nor the babbling that followed as she all but dove into his arms. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. 1,000 times thank you, I love you. Grandfather choked. Ooh you got me good there. Winter's words caught up with her a moment later. She froze. Now she looked up and found grandfather grinning ear to ear. I mean, that is to say. Don't worry about it. He tousled her hair, drawing a growl from her. You were the top of your class this year. I thought a reward was in order. And I saw you eyeing my weapons the last time I visited. She had been. He spoke the truth. She didn't have mother's aura reserves, nor the fine-tuned chakra control of little Weiss. But when it came to breaking things, killing things, she was good at that. Very good. She was strong and fast, and getting better with her glyphs. She could already summon the Grim she'd killed. It was in her blood. The thought pained her, but there it was. Sit, would you kindly? He sat on her cot and patted the space beside him for her to join him. Winter didn't even have to jump this time. Grandfather noticed and laughed. Look at that, you don't even need my help this time. You're getting tall. Did you steal all your sister's height? Winter giggled despite herself. Weiss wouldn't appreciate that joke, but she wasn't here to hear it now, was she? Here, grandfather nudged her weapons into her hands. I'll show you how these work. Give the trigger a squeeze. Gently, now. She did as he bade. With a click of their gears the blades bent and folded down to enfold her fist in a wicked punching implement, much like the way grandfather Zickles could. Now twist the handle like so. The blades cracked apart to reveal a pair of vents within, thankfully lacking ammunition. She'd need to practice with dummy rounds until she truly got the hang of it, but she could already see a future in which she used those hidden guns to devastating effect against her foes. It would prove a nasty and lethal surprise for anyone who tried to close with her in combat. And. She lost herself to her excitement once more. What else? Watch, he guided her hands, still holding the blades, pressed the hilts together, and. But the flick of the gears she found herself holding a bladed staff. Her head spun. So many combinations. Just like his weapons. It'll take practice. I will. She burst out. I'll practice. Here was a weapon tailor-made for her strength, able to adapt to any situation with ease. It would take time, but she had all the time in the world. I'll treasure it. I promise. Good girl. He patted her head. Now what's this I hear about you being bullied? Winter's enthusiasm died an ugly dye, as did the smile on her lips. I don't know what you mean. Winter. She quailed but said nothing. She had to handle this on her own. Mustn't ask for help. So what if the entire school was against her? She was a Schnee. A Schnee did not ask for help. Fine, have it your way. He sighed at the last. Mind doing me a favor? Her eyes lit up. Anything. Grandfather smiled. How good are you at writing letters? To whom? She knew she had a few cousins scattered throughout Remnant. Was she writing to one of those? She already had one such penpal in a homely little village known as Ansel. Come to think of it, she'd best write to him again. John could be such a boy sometimes. But Grandpa had asked a question. Who will I be addressing this letter to? Grandfather's grin grew another inch. To a friend. I'll dictate the letter. Afterwards, you can tell me about these bullies of yours. Winter wavered, warbling a little. I really shouldn't. Naruto tilted his head. You really should. She sang like a canary. Metal. James hated whistling. It wasn't the act itself that riled him so, but what so often preceded said whistle that always made him anxious. Be it the impending impact of a high artillery shell about to detonate on his position, the whine of a dust drill striking a vein, or a haunting melody, it always chilled him to the core. Because he knew what it meant. What it signified. Right now, he was dealing with the latter. He heard it now, a low lullaby echoing through his office door. Someone was waiting for him within. Gloved fingers wrapped around the handle. He contemplated letting it go. Just walking away and not dealing with this today. Maybe it would be better to go home, crawl into his bunk and pretend this never happened. James Ironwood. A familiar, almost paternal voice snapped at him. You get in here right now, or I will tan your hide. No, there was no point in running. He'd learned that by now. He opened the door. James knew evil. As a captain and soon to be general. He fought against it every day. In a perfect world a good soldier should be stop wrongdoing wherever they found it. Good would be good and evil was evil. But the world wasn't black and white and Remnant was far from perfect. Power corrupts and absolute power almost absolutely. He'd seen many a comrade promoted to command only to watch them go bad or break beneath the burdens of leadership. Once again the world wasn't black and white. All too often there were shades of gray. James hated gray. Almost as much as he loathed whistling. And his current guest was very much in the gray category. Sure enough, there he was, sitting behind his desk like he owned the damn thing. "James." He ended his whistling with a pleased hum. "So nice to see you again. You look pale. Have you lost weight?" There was no use fighting or trying to cast him out. His predecessor had tried. It hadn't ended well for him. "Must you do that every time?" Winter's grandfather granted him a wry grin. "Does it make you anxious?" The man before him was neither good nor evil. He simply was. "It does, Nicholas." The man always smiled a little when he said that, as though it were some grand cosmic joke. James had yet to discover the punchline, and he prayed he never did. Mantle and Altez owed much to this man, more than they would ever known, though he seldom stayed in either these days. He'd been content to pass down the mantle of the SDC to the next generation while he did his own work. James could respect that. "So I was here." "Sir, I thought we agreed that you were going to stay away." Nicholas stuttered softly, mildly amused by his formality. "You don't have to call me that, son." James slid into the seat opposite him with a sigh. He did. He really did. He had learned long ago to conceal such things from the public. The truth of his birth was something that absolutely mustn't be revealed. Should the world ever learn that Nicholas Naruto Schnee controlled virtually all of Atlas from the shadows, that he effectively had family in the military, as well as the SDC, and an iron grip on Solitas itself, well, the world wouldn't be able to do anything to dislodge him, but they didn't know that and so would still try. It would be an annoyance. Mother would have laughed at such things, but Mother wasn't here. She had been dead for a very long time. Still, he was happy to see him. Even if he couldn't show it. "Why? Are you here? I hear your students have been bullying my granddaughter, your niece." Nicholas planted both elbows on his desk and leaned forward, fixing him with a gimlet stare. "I take exception to that." Balls. He should have known why he'd come. "I can't officially endorse anything you do, of course. I have a reputation to maintain and can't be seen showing favoritism." "I'm well aware." Father clicked his tongue softly. "I'm not asking you to do anything here. Just turn a blind eye. Then do as you will." He paused, considering. "But if I may ask." "Make it quick." Father made to stand. "I'm not in the best of moods. I came here as a courtesy. Please don't kill all of them." James feared his plea would fall on deaf ears even as he said it. "We need every soldier we have for the war to come, sir." His sire grumbled under his breath and briefly covered his eyes with one hand. "Told you not to call me that. You'll make me feel old." "Sorry, sir." The ghost of a smile touched his face. "Not sorry. Brat." Father blinked suddenly, as though just recalling something. "I got you a gift, by the way. It's in your desk drawer." James cocked a brow and regarded the large, slightly open drawer in question. "Dare I ask what?" A rare smile softened Naruto's face. "It's a surprise." "Oh, dear." Father wasn't the best with gifts. Sometimes they were extraordinary. He'd built him a battlecruiser for his 16th birthday, and yet at others, well. Father's heart was always in it, he couldn't deny that. Hopefully this time the gift wouldn't be quite so startling. Who was he kidding? "Go on," Naruto nudged him. "Take a look. You'll love it." He opened the drawer. A missile of black and white rocketed upward to strike him head-on. Instinct took over and he caught it. Mistakes were made. The moment he did, the object started squirming and making happy noises. A wet tongue licked Ironwood's cheek, followed by a wet snout. His eyes bulged. "You got me a puppy." He turned back to look, but Father was already gone, having taken the chance to run. Which left him with this creature in his arms. Belatedly, he recognized the breed. It was a corgi, and an energetic one at that. His eyes strayed to the blue collar around the pup's neck. Someone had wound a note into the collar, and there beside it, he glimpsed a name etched into the metal plate. "This is Zway's brother, Dre. If anyone needs a comfort animal, it's you. Best regards. Dad." James tutted softly and pulled the little pup closer, quietly delighting in the comfort it provided. Belatedly, he pitied Winter's bullies. The poor fools who had tormented Winter would learn that lesson the hard way. Never mess with a Schnee. Well, not unless you had your affairs in order. And if you didn't, run hard, run fast, and pray for a swift death if death was feeling merciful. He suspected Naruto Nicholas wouldn't be. For you see, there was another unspoken rule when dealing with a Schnee. Fuck about and find out. The silent girl tapped her foot. She wasn't happy. "No sir, not at all. Because you see, he was late. Late. He'd promised to swing by the station and pick her up at the airport, yet there was no sign of him. Nope. None at all. And it was damn cold here. Sure, maybe it was her fault for not packing warmer clothes, but still. How was she to know Mantle was this cold? She'd never been before. No one had told her. Not her fault. Glaring at her watch only made her all the more frustrated. It made her want to shout, to rant and rage. But she couldn't do that. No. Nay. Never. She absolutely must not do that. Grandpa had been terribly clear on that last bit. Illusions were all well and good, but she couldn't speak until she gained control of her voice. A single misspoken word could kill dozens. Hundreds, if she wasn't careful. She'd been born with this gift, this curse, and she must master it. Failure to do so made her as much a danger to herself as others. She'd learned that lesson the hard way. Hence why she'd come all the way out here in the middle of cold, freezing nowhere, waiting for someone who still hadn't show up. Trivia. There you are. The girl once known as Trivia Vanel jumped and whirled in midair, knowing that voice all too well. The moment she did, she saw him, striding through the crowd at speed. Blue eyes met her mismatched orbs and crinkled as he granted her a smile. In a matter of moments he was upon her. A hand descended to ruffle her hair. "Sorry I'm late. Had to visit an old friend." Neo held out her arms, hopped in place once, donned a fearsome pout. She didn't dare speak, but that didn't stop her from mouthing the words "Grandpa." Up. At him until he complied. He swept her up into his arms and she latched on for dear life. Phooey on Mama and Papa. She was glad they were dead. Grandpa was the best. Grandpa loved her. Grandpa understood. And when Grandpa grinned, well, Trivia leaned in to listen like a good girl. "Say, you wanna help me get some payback for your cousin?" Her head bobbed eagerly. Samantha Green was a good student. That wasn't her opinion. It was a damn fact. Just ask anyone in Atlas Academy. She had worked hard to get where she was. Nearly killed herself to make her name known. She'd come up from nothing. Best grades, best combat scores, best recommendations. Captain Ironwood himself had taken interest in her career. There was even talk of her joining the specialists after she graduated. Everything was coming up roses. She had it on lock. Not by any fancy name or a stupid title, but through bloody hard work. She'd make Mom proud, make things easier for her and the kids. And then the schneer and everything. She came out of nowhere one day. Bumped up several grades, a year younger than everyone else, yet she outshone everyone. Even her. All eyes fell upon this newcomer. This girl, this child who surpassed everyone in class. Suddenly, no one cared about a tough-as-nails girl from Mantle with a family to provide for. They only had eyes for her. For this prodigy, this stick-thin freak who made them all look like failures. The higher-ups only cared about her. Only Winter Schnee. Just like that, Samantha's hope of rising through the ranks fizzled, and her future with it. So, yeah, she bullied her. She couldn't help herself. She just made her so angry it wasn't fair. Even her semblance reflected her disposition these days. In the beginning, she could create explosions with her aura, blast whatever she touched to rubble. For a while, she'd been content with that until her semblance had evolved. Now she could mark multiple her target and detonate them at a distance, sometimes hours later. She could make anything into a bomb these days. Some said it was only a matter of time until she blew herself up. Maybe so. It was an absurdly broken ability and a dangerous one, a gift that taxed the very limits of her body and aura. But she'd worked hard at it. She'd earned it. Not that prissy Schnee, maybe so, but tomorrow she was going to show that Schnee bitch who was boss in the ring and for all. A whistle broke through her thoughts. Samantha jolted upright on her coat, eyes bulging. A man in black stood in the corner, a hood tugged over his face. He held a clipboard in hand. "Samantha Green." She blinked, terribly startled. "Yes." "Good." He read off her dossier with almost casual disinterest. Olive skin, black hair, green eyes. Oldest of 4 siblings with a 5th on the way. Father was a huntsman. Died to Grim. "Your mother runs a little dust shop in Mantle, correct?" The man tutted softly as she balked, whiskered cheeks dimpling in the shadows of his cowl. "You've certainly come from humble beginnings." Samantha didn't mask the lack of insignia on his personage. This man wasn't an instructor or even an officer, which meant she owed him no deference. Good. She was about to kick his ass. "Who the hell are you?" "Sorry to crash the party." He smiled at her then. It was all teeth. "I thought we'd have a little chat. I understand you've been associating with a Miss Winter Schnee. I'm here to take you to." Anik bleated in his brain. Take. He was a kidnapper. He must be with the White Fang. She should have known. "You'll never take me alive." "Now wait just a second." Her eyes flashed. Samantha most certainly did not. She jolted upright with frantic speed, lurched in, and slapped both hands against his ribs. Then she flared her semblance and detonated his aura. Her would-be kidnapper barely had time to blink, then he was gone. His body went up in fire and smoke. The sheer heat forced Samantha back half a step, gasping for air. Ha! Served him right. Damn kidnapper. "I'm sorry," she scoffed into the smoke. "Did that hurt?" "Sure looked like it did, Ak." The clawed hand burst out of the black smoke, found their throat, and ripped them into the air. Her semblance sputtered and died. "Sorry." An angry hiss rasped in her ear as 5 firm fingers dug into her windpipe. Quite suddenly Samantha found herself face to face with fearsome red eyes staring out of his singed face. Somehow his hood remained in place, though it too had been badly burned. Does it hurt? His grip began to tighten on her throat, choking the life out of her lungs. Looks like it does. And it gave way to horror. No, wait, sorry. She babbled out the words. I'm sorry. I'll do whatever you want. Her kidnapper leaned in with a growl, considering her as one might an ant. Tears welled up in Samantha's eyes as her aura fizzled and died. Her life flashed before. Every instant that led to this moment. She couldn't even bring herself to fight back, such was the absolute strength of her opponent. Her worlds began to blur gray at the edge. Please don't kill me, I don't want to die. He dropped her. She landed hard on her rear. He flung up his arms. Why did I play with my food? There's no fun in killing you now. Samantha gulped, daring to hope. Does that mean I get to live? He stared at for a long moment. Want a job? Samantha whimpered. Who are you? He tugged back his hood. Wait. That face. Schnee, her mind blubbered. But not just any Schnee. This was the Schnee. Mr. Nicholas Schnee. A whimper escaped her lips. Why are you here? Ah, so you do know me. His head bobbed. Good. That simplifies things. You're in quite a bit of trouble, Miss Green. Something deep inside her folded. I'm sorry. You should be. He leaned down to loom over her. My granddaughter could fold you like a pretzel. Hell, she could feed you your own heart. The only reason she hasn't is her kindness. I, however, lack that. You've upset her, meaning you've upset me. One word from me and your mother will be run out of business. However will she care for your siblings then? She crumbled like a house of cards. I'm sorry. Please, sir. I won't do it again. Good. He leaned back, standing tall once more. I forgive you. Why you do? She hiccuped a little, not quite comprehending it. Was this a trick? Just like that. You were the first of 10 on my list. He tapped one finger to her forehead. And brimming with potential. As such, I'm prepared to put this unpleasantness behind us and see you fast-tracked into the specialists. Those words had her heart soaring. Better yet, I'm prepared to make a generous donation to your mother's shop and offer her a place in the SDC. What's the catch? Samantha was a mantle girl through and through, she knew when something was too good to be true. Why offer this to me? You were about to kill me a second ago. And he would have gotten away with it, too. No one messed with Nicholas Schnee. Why hadn't she thought of that? Because you see, Winter needs a friend, Samantha. Nicholas steepled his fingers and looked at her. You're going to be that friend. If she makes more, that's grand. But this misguided bullying of yours stops here. Now. Today. If I hear so much as a whiff of it, I won't need to kill you. Because you'll wish you were dead. He leaned in. I'll break your arms, followed shortly thereafter by your legs, and throw you outside for the grim. Do you understand? Her head bobbed frantically, setting her dark tresses swaying. Sensational. He beamed. Now, then shake my hand. Samantha dithered, uncertain. Nicholas grinned at her. Come on now, won't you shake a poor grandfather's hand? That night, 9 students vanished into thin air. They were the ringleaders, the instigators, the bullies, boys and girls who took perverse pleasure in putting down a child 1 year their junior for no reason other than they could. A girl who had, by rights, done them no harm, yet one they tormented her all the same. She did not retaliate and so they continued to harass her, feeling themselves free from consequences. They were not. Death came in the dead of night for them. Samantha Green spoke quickly enough to save herself and struck a bargain to survive. The rest did not. Death entered their dorms and one by one, they ceased to be. Like little lights going out in the night. No one ever heard from them again. No bodies were found come morning. No one even remembered their names. Not their mothers or brothers, their fathers or sisters. When asked of them, they could no longer recall their names, only a vague sensation of loss. James Ironwood knew. He knew what had transpired and said a silent prayer for their souls. It was as though everything about them had been torn from history. Like they'd simply ceased to exist. As if they had been erased. You know me. Pro Branwyn did not fear death. Maybe that was his semblance. Or his upbringing. Maybe both. Meh, semantics. Either way, there were some things in this world you just couldn't fight. They said anyone who came near Naruto or Nicholas as he was known these days was destined for death. A bad end, if you would, game over, that sort of thing. Then again, if that were true he would have died the first day he met him. But he hadn't now, had he? Because you see, bad luck and death went hand in hand. He didn't fear the old man any more than he feared his crappy luck. Maybe that made him a bit reckless, no, it definitely did. But hey, when you had the Reaper himself sitting down for a drink with you, there really wasn't a whole lot you could do. Atlas wasn't exactly known for its drinking establishments. Most of the bastards were too uptight for that. Thankfully he knew a seedy little dive down here in Mantle. Sure, it looked like shit and didn't smell much better, but they each had a good view of the door from their table, and no one would think to look for them way down here in the dumps. Ale still tasted like watered-down sawdust, though. He'd had to bring his own. Really, it almost made him regret flying all the way up to Atlas. Almost, but not quite. If it weren't for this blonde bastard Taeyang wouldn't exist, which meant he never would have met Raven and Summer, meaning Yang and Ruby wouldn't exist. Crow adored his surly little spitfires. He'd do anything for them. Raven might have tainted their childhood by betraying Tai, but her mistake had inadvertently allowed Summer and Tai to get together, thereby bringing Ruby into the world. It was the only reason he hadn't hunted Raven down and dragged her back. Then again, Naruto claimed to have met and killed her in essence already, so he supposed that was something. For that alone, and so many other things, he was loyal to him. Always had been, always would be. So, he began apropos of nothing, I heard you murked Tyrion. I did. Naruto eyed the bottle of scotch, but abstained. Ed didn't drink. Not very often at least. Didn't stop Crow. Good. He took a long draft to celebrate the bastard's death. He was a pain in my ass. Naruto grunted. And you're keeping an eye on Amber? Yeah, he waved a hand. I stitched that seal into her cloak like you asked. Kid never noticed. Second someone makes a move on her, you'll know. But enough about that. Leaning forward, he planted both arms on the creaky table and leered at him. How was it? Naruto quirked a blonde brow, playing coy. How was who? Moon, don't be like that. Did she scream? Naruto rolled his eyes. Once again, who? But which? Who else? Always took her for a screamer. Did you at least hold hands? We did. Felt nice to be old-fashioned for once. Is there a reason you're here to torment me? Ruby's getting her scythe tomorrow. His smirk became a shit-eating grin. Figured you'd want to be there. Judging by the sudden gleam in his eyes, he was right. Ruby would be over the moon. Heh. Score 1 for Drunkle Crow. I knew you were my favorite for a reason. Did you fly all the way to Atlas just to tell me that? Yeah, actually, nah. He took a long swig from his flask. Definitely the booze talking. I had some questions. Naruto didn't answer. The Schnee patriarch merely waited him out. Finally, he found his nerve. It's about Summer. A pause. What about her? I've been wondering for a while now. Crow took another drink to fortify himself, then rallied. What was that mission she went on? Oz doesn't know anything about it and she always clams up when we ask her. But you went after her, right? I did. He slammed a hand down on the table. Then what the hell was she doing? Naruto regarded him for a long moment. She tried to upset the natural laws of the world and kill Salem. It backfired. She ran. Tyrion hunted her down. Were you there? To see the aftermath of her harebrained scheme, yes. Death planted a hand on his chin and tilted his head. I'm the reason Summer's still kicking and your terrifying Grim Queen hasn't left her tower. Wouldn't do to let my daughter-in-law get killed now, would it? I said I would look after this timeline, and I did. Crow winced, briefly fearing what would have happened if he hadn't. Yang and Ruby's tear-stained little faces. The Yang sinking down into despair. No. No, that hadn't happened. It would never happen. He wouldn't let it. And I'm grateful for that. Another swig came and went. But now I'm starting to worry about you. You sound so damn impersonal sometimes. You good? A hand waffled in the hair. More or less. He frowned. You say that, but I'm starting to wonder why you became this. Naruto blinked. It seemed a struggle to muster emotion for a moment. It was necessary. The tree showed me what I needed to be a while ago. You mean the place where you became death? The lights dimmed as he said the words, drawing more than a few baffled looks from several patrons. If I knew how to get back, I would. It was a one-way trip at the time. He raised a hand to inspect it and a swirl of dark shadow shimmered over his fingertips. I became this to bring order to a world that flouted the laws of life and death. No one else was going to do it and the balance worked for a while. Until it didn't. Until it didn't, Naruto acknowledged him with a nod. We had an agreement. Salem broke it. Slim shoulders rolled in a restless shrug. Now she and Ozma will pay the price. I'm going to hunt down her agents and then his if he gets uppity. And just like that, Crow Branwen was immensely glad he'd chosen to switch sides when it mattered most. Yeah, but why Oz, though? I've been killing him for ages. The old Reaper replied. One parasite is no different from another. Okay, that he disagreed with. He's done a lot of good for the kingdoms, you know. Yes, but he's also done a lot of bad, hasn't he? That was before my time. I know, Crow. A beat of silence passed between bad luck and death. Do you regret it? Crow asked at last. Do you ever wish you didn't become this? Sometimes. Naruto surprised him by uncorking the as of yet untouched bottle and taking a long languid sip, then set it down with a sigh. But it had to be me. Someone else might have gotten it wrong, yeah, I know. He stifled a yawn behind one hand. You're always saying that. I say those words for a reason, you know. I chose to become this. No one else could. But that means. In an instant he understood. Really understood. Naruto had been around for a while. He'd been deaf even longer. Nicholas Schnee was simply the latest face he wore. Far as he knew, all Saint Nick like hell he was, he'd scare the crap out of kids in a Santa suit, had been around for as long as Ozma and Salem, maybe even a little longer. Just what did you give the things? She's not a thing, she's the tree. Naruto admonished him. Don't insult a lady. And I gave her. He tapped his chest with a promise. Should I ever lose faith in this world, I'll go back to her. Red choked Crow, turning his booze to so much swill in his mouth. Wah? No. Ruby and Yang needed their grandpa. Never mind everyone else. He lunged across the table and grabbed his hands. You gotta hit it off with Good Witch. I'll be your wingman. Naruto hid his face behind the palm of a hand. Crow, no. Crow, yes. You're not gonna let this go, are you? Like hell I am. I'll see you two married by the end of the year. Naruto surprised him, then. Rather than retreat, he started to laugh. He'd made progress. The realization shamed Pietro Polendia. After all, he was a scientist at heart, was he not? He should be delighted to push ahead. To excel by leaps and bounds, to forge new ground in the name of science. His kind pushed boundaries all the time. It was what they did. Atlas wouldn't be anywhere near the technological superpower it was now without the innovation of brave men and women in his given field. Faith. Belief. Such things mean nothing to a man of science. Bots had said those words to him once, before things went so very wrong. He missed those days. Things were so much simpler then. Before the incident. Funding for the project had been running low. Dangerously so. He'd been desperate. So he'd made a deal with a mysterious benefactor. He didn't realize who he was until it was much too late. His creation would be peerless, but the modifications suggested by said benefactor threatened to push her well beyond the capabilities of a huntress and into the realm of dare he say gods. There had been a time once, before he lost use of his legs, when Pietro scorned the existence of such beings. But after what he'd seen. He was a believer. Hello Pietro. A low voice crooned behind him. I'd like an update on the project. Speak of him and he shall appear. Pietro whirled with a yelp. Don't do that Nicholas. You nearly gave me a heart attack. He noticed the green bottle in his hand a moment later. Have you been drinking? Catching up with an old friend. He tossed the bottle over his shoulder. It shattered against the wall. Now, I ask you a question. Why yes, of course, he stammered, hastily adjusting his glasses. I've made stellar progress. Here, let me show you. He didn't know what Nicholas Schnee was, only that he was very old and didn't look a day over 30. He'd found records of him dating back well, far further than they should. He'd burned them at his request. No one should know such things. Because you see, Nicholas Schnee wasn't a man at all, oh no, he was something much worse. How's our program? The key was being thorough, and he was. Death did not discriminate. Death came for all. But if you made yourself useful, if you were good, death sometimes let you be. Just a little while longer. And if you were death, if you didn't value your life, he came for you with the fury of 1,000 blades. See for yourself sir. He gestured to an adjacent screen. She's still just code at the moment. I'm working on her body, but she's very aware in most areas. Not all of them of course, she was still being debugged at the moment, but she was very much his daughter. Even if she didn't wholly understand the concept yet. There have been a few minor hiccups, but rest assured, she'll be in proper working order soon enough. Will she, now? Let's test that. Pietro keyed up the interface with fumbling fingers. A series of green letters raced across the computer's black interface. Hello. The speakers overhead chimed in a female voice, faintly tinny. I am Penny. Pleased to make your acquaintance. Remarkable. Naruto smiled. You actually did it. Hello, granddaughter. It's so nice to finally meet you. There was a pause as Penny's program processed the words. What is a granddaughter? Pietro damn near choked on his own spit. Blast. Of all the things for her not to know. Simple, the smile that split Naruto's face was almost sad by comparison. It means your family. That sounds sensational, she replied, but what, pray tell, is a family? Well, a family is a little something like this. He told her. You could kill her, true. But what saves your life after she's dead, What stops me from pulping your head with a red Rasengan? Everyone already thinks that girl is dead. That loss has been accepted. Mourned, but accepted. Have you accepted yours? Are you ready to die today? No. I didn't think so. Now here's what you're going to do for me. Listen. Where you're going. Tell your friends. Tell your family. Tell everyone you know. You tell them all. When you see me coming. Run. Or you could just. Death. We're old friends now. Watts was wise. Hardly an exaggeration on his part that he might be quite possibly the smartest man on Remnant if one were to ignore a certain parasite. His genius had allowed Atlas to advance and innovate far beyond normal means. By his brilliance a certain general stood upon his shoulders and called himself a giant. The very continent of Solitas owed him 1,000 thank yous, insofar as he was concerned. But brilliance wasn't often respected, and even here in Atlas, there were lines that decent people refused to cross. Or allow others to cross, for that matter. He had learned that unfortunate lesson the hard way. Technology and biology should not mix. Perfection is a lie. You're mad, Watts. Ah. Small-minded talk for small-minded fools, afraid to pursue greatness. It wasn't disloyal to look after himself now, was it? No, not at all. Hazel was a brute who cared only for his shot at revenge. Tyrion had been a raving lunatic and the girl, well. She was a mess. Pompous brat would get her comeuppance in time. She thought she was entitled to everything just because she'd suffered, but suffering wasn't enough. You couldn't just be strong, you had to be smart. Couldn't just be deserving, you had to be worthy. But she was neither of those things. All she had ever been, would ever be, was a bloody migraine. Is this seat taken? Poor little words, and yet they snapped Arthur out of his doldrums as surely as a blow to the head, and with it came fear. He raised his gaze, clutching a mug of brandy between his hands, fighting down a flinch now as someone dragged a chair back. Slowly. Loudly. Without so much as a care in the world. He paid no heed to the other patrons and took his time, drawing out the moment, the sound, the noise. Were it anyone else, anywhere else, he would have snapped at them. Not now. Not here. Not with him. The chosen seedy little dive down in the depths of Mantle for their rendezvous, far away from the prying eyes of the world. Even so, he still found himself skittish as the hooded figure sat opposite him. Their face lay steeped in shadow, but were one to squint, they might glimpse a pair of whiskered cheeks dimpled in a thin grin. He didn't trust that smirk for a moment. He'd seen that same smile before the slaughter began and knew not to trifle with it. But if he was here now, that meant he'd received his message and agreed to meet. Why did that not fill him with confidence? We weren't seen. Of course not. He bristled. I rigged all the cameras in the area. Have you forgotten who you're talking to? The hooded man Naruto tilted his head a fraction of an inch. Have you? Watts winced, belatedly realizing his mistake. Forgive me, my lord. It was a momentary lapse. Death rumbled a laugh. Don't worry about it. We all make mistakes. I trust it won't happen again. It most assuredly would not. There was a time when he had thought science could conquer all. Perhaps even defeat death itself. Naive of him. As a scientist, nay, a doctor, he was no stranger to pain and suffering. One might say they were old friends. But death? That was another matter. A terrifying prospect, even to one such as he. The man only lived once, unlike a certain grim queen, and a pesky parasite he was far from immortal. Salem and Ozma could die as many times as they liked, but a single bullet would do him in. His betrayal wasn't a recent one. He'd taken his chance years ago and turned his coat the moment he realized what he was up against. For you see, Watts was wise, but he preferred not to fight. After all, he wasn't a proper huntsman like the rest. He could defend himself when pressed, but he was first and foremost a warrior of the mind. You couldn't fight death and win, but you might be able to outsmart it. Death came for all, sooner or later, but it was his hope that death wouldn't take him just yet, so long as he proved himself useful. Perhaps, had he realized just how much he had in common with Pietro Polendina in this moment, he might have felt better about himself. Alas, he did not and was left to stew in his misery as Nicholas Schnee Naruto waved down a waitress for a drink. He wasn't fooled by that smiling face, not taken in by those kind words nor the cunning facade. He'd heard his whistle, felt the bite of his sickles against his throat and those words. You have two choices. Die or serve me. What will it be? The man had to look after himself first and foremost. Of course, Salem would kill him painfully should she ever learn of his treachery, to say nothing of Ozma should he ever flee to him. But there were worse things than death. An end that lasted eons, a death by 1,000 cuts, or worse, slowly having one's soul shaved away piece by painful piece. Ah, but his true master was glaring his way, and he knew better than to make him wait. Here's everything I have on her current plans. He slid a black scroll across the table to him. My new virus, Salem's schemes for Beacon, the White Fang, the maidens, even that foolish girl she's picked up a few years back. His master went still. Girl, you say. Perhaps he could turn this to his advantage after all. Yes, an ambitious bitch by the name of Cinder. She's picked up 2 minions of her own. The Reaper said not a word. Was that anger in his eyes? He couldn't tell. Are you familiar with them? The silence that followed proved stifling. Watts knew a minefield when he saw one and wisely retreated. Yes, of course. He temporized, raising both hands. It's not my place to pry. And the Fall Maiden? What of her? Amber, if memory serves. A wandering waif and quite vulnerable. He leaned in closer, masking his mouth with one hand. I wouldn't put it past Cinder and her precious pawns to make a move against her. Naruto already knew the name. Watts could see the recognition in his eyes. I have her last known coordinates here. Naruto accepted them without a word, and when he didn't immediately retort, Watts dared to push the envelope. I understand the roads of Vale are quite dangerous this time of year. His mustache quirked in a smirk. It would such a shame if an accident befell poor Cinder. To his great delight, Naruto mirrored that smile. It would indeed. You've done well, Watts. Here. He withdrew a vial from his coat, brimming with red liquid. A sample of my blood, as promised. Do with it what you will. Relief crashed through him. May I? Naruto waved him on. He needed no further encouragement. He uncorked the vial, pressed it to his lips, and knocked it back as one might a shot at last call, draining it to nearly the last drop. Sweet ambrosia. He could already feel it taking effect as he swallowed. His wrinkles receded, his hair regained its dark luster as the aches and pains of age faded away. And in their absence mind became sharper, his thoughts clearer than they had been in decades. Much better, he wiped his mouth with a napkin, whisking that last bead of blood away in the vial for further study. You have my thanks. Naruto looked up suddenly as though sensing something. Whatever it was must have startled him. Because he moved in a rush. He burst to his feet, sweeping back his cloak as he did. If she makes any more moves. I'll keep you well apprised of any future schemes. Where are you going? The Vale, he said in passing, downing his glass. I'll be right back. Oh, and Watts. Yes. Whatever plans you have for the Schnee family for my family, I suggest you drop them. The flicker of baleful light was his only warning. He blinked up and the blonde was gone. Watts shook his head and heaved a hearty sigh. How does he do that? They had her. Until they didn't. All hell broke loose. Death walked among them. Amber couldn't think of any other word for it. For the miracle that was unfolding before her. It was all she could do to hold her wound shut, to watch Gramps wade in. They couldn't touch him. 3-1 and none of them came close. Not even once. Steel flashed, sickles danced and they were the ones to fall back, bleeding badly. 3 against 1, He tilted his head beneath the hood, grinning as an arrow whistled past his cheek. Now that's unfair. His sickle flicked out. One of their attackers pitched backward, bleeding from a great gash in their torso. Oops. He smiled thinly. 2, now. Better, but not quite. The lazy swipe took another's head. Someone yelped. Everything had come undone for her. Cinder fought on, only to gasp as a fist found her solar plexus and blasted the air from her lungs. No. No, no. No, no, no. It wasn't supposed to be this way. Why was he here? He should be in Atlas. I mean you totally could have avoided this if you just killed her outright. Naruto clicked his tongue at her in mild admonishment. I can respect a good kill. But no. You had to monologue, had to draw it out. So let me teach you a lesson. Ruthlessness is mercy upon yourselves. When you encounter an enemy, you do not hesitate. You show no mercy. You close your eyes and… His head rose, blue eyes burning like balefire. Kill. Why couldn't she feel her left arm? Her gaze traveled down. Oh. That was why. There it was, sprawled out into the road, still clutching one of her blades. Her eyes widened in shock, followed by horror, then agony now as the pain found her, driving her down to a knee. Monster. How rude. There's a monster inside all of us. I'm just a little more in tune with mine these days. Get up now, before I make you. He strode away, tugging back his hood as he went. For the record, I'm not emotional about the maiden. He waved a hand flippantly, uncaring as a stray breeze ruffled his bangs. Those come and go like the tides. And here at last, those bright eyes went dark. But I am emotional that someone laid their hands my granddaughter. Her gaze strayed to Amber and saw why. The girl looked far too smug for her liking. Oh, shy. My granddaughter. The very world howled with him for a moment, only to fall eerily silent. You tried to kill my kin. My blood, my baby girl. No amount of lean or promises or pleas can pay for that. Cinder, no, for that. His sickles whistled out in a song of steel. I want a pound of flesh. Her stomach bottomed out, her heart hammered in her chest, and her throat went dry. What? A pound of flesh? His smile didn't waver. It matters not to me where on your anatomy it is withdrawn from. If you don't have the stomach to take it for yourself, I will. Did she have the rage back? She would gladly take the rage over this eerie glacial calm, this frigid terror sapping her very soul. She grasped for straws and found one. You already took my arm. Surely that's enough. He looked past her lazily. Why, so I did. But what you fail to realize is that there are 3 of you and I require a pound of flesh from each. One. Of. You. And since you're the only one awake. Her eyes widened as she realized what he intended. I'll settle for the whole damn thing here. A flash of silver raked across her left eye, blinding her forevermore. She recoiled with a yowl and slashed at him wildly, buying herself precious seconds in which she turned to flee for all the good it did her. An annoyed growl reached her ears before she made it a yard away and pain flashed across her Achilles heel, hamstringing her, bringing her low. "Can't have you running away now, can we?" A hand closed around the back of her head, forcing her into the mud. "That would be rude." Cinder writhed around in his grasp and flung up her good hand, fingers inches from his face. His eyes widened. She flared fire in his eyes, trying to melt his face away. All for naught. His intact visage leaned through the smoke, trailing wisps of dark haze. "Is that really the best you can do?" Her mouth worked wordlessly, struggling to say anything. You damn you." The bemused blonde frowned. "You're shit at dying, you know that." Cinderful never saw the strike that ended her life. Only a flash of steel and a brief moment of weightlessness. Somehow, her life didn't end immediately. She was still dimly aware of it all, of the seconds that followed as her body pitched forward. Her head tumbled from her shoulders, struck the ground, bounced once, and rolled to a halt at Amber's feet. Her good eye widened. The last thing she saw was the fall maiden's scowl, her leg rearing back, winding up to stomp down on her skull. Crunch. Naruto clicked his tongue in mild approval as she crushed her head. "Good girl. Stay right there, sweetie. Grandpa just needs a second." The groan pervaded the air behind him and bemused, he craned his head back. "Oops. Looks like one of her pawns is still alive, how sloppy of me." He waltzed their way, roughly rolled then onto their back, looked into their dying eyes, watched them widen now as they beheld him. "Look at you, wasted and gasping for air." He crouched down before them, smiling. "Poor thing. You didn't ask for any of this." They tried to speak, but managed only a gurgling bloody gasp. Pity stirred in his tired old heart. He offered them a clawed hand. "Want a job? Riddle me this. What's the value of a life? Not the meaning, mind you, but the worth. That of a single mortal soul." The answer? Everything and nothing. It can be wonderfully priceless or utterly worthless. That's the beauty of it. In the end, life is what you make of it. Death is much the same, believe it or not. It can be rather warm at. It can also be quite cold. It can be terribly abrupt. It can be horridly slow. It can be a mercy. It can be agony. One might greet it as an old friend and go with it hand in hand or rage like a lunatic against the fading light. In the end, I suppose it depends on the life you've lived. So I ask you once again, you who lay before me. What is the value of a life? And who are you? Death. Your hired interlude of an apprentice. Death had come. They could feel it in the air tonight, gripping their guts in the dark, twisting their every thought into an ugly knot until fear was all they knew. Resistance was futile. The more they struggled against the inevitable, the faster they bled out. Damnable. Their aura was gone and there was just so much blood. Their thoughts were fading, their breath a shudder as they slipped away into the gray. No life left in them. No color. No hope. Only the void. They could barely remember anything anymore. Not even their own name. No wait. They remembered hate. Or rather, they remembered him. They remembered the slaughter. How easily he disemboweled them, killed the other one, and tortured Cinder to death. Should they be upset about that? They felt like they should, but it was so difficult to be angry right now. They were cold. They were tired. They wanted to rest. Didn't they? What was the point? The maiden was safe. The plan was scarpered. Cinder was dead. There was no one left to follow, not that they'd been much of a follower to begin with. So what now? Roll over and die, then? Was that it? Just give up? After all this? Everything? No. Screw that bastard. Don't give him the satisfaction of your tears. Their broken body had other plans. A soft groan of pain parted their parched lips, whispered through the air, and reached the ear of their killer. Bemused, the bearded Schnee craned his head back, idly regarding them as one might an amusing ant. "Whoops," he crooned ever so softly, "looks like one of Cinder's pawns is still alive, how sloppy of me. Wait just a second, Amber. Grandpa needs to tidy up." He waltzed their way, roughly rolled then onto their side, looked into their dying eyes, watched them widen now as they beheld him. "Look at you, wasted and gasping for air." He crouched down before them, smiling. "Poor thing. You didn't ask for any of this." Right now they wanted to ask for a knife so they could stick it in his skull, but beggars couldn't choosers. They tried to speak, but managed only a gurgling gasp of a groan. For some reason, that seemed to stir pity in his tired old heart. Not that. No pity. Anything but pity. He offered them a clawed hand. "Want a job? They wheezed out a breath in sheer disbelief. You're some kindred idiot. Maybe so. He shrugged a shoulder. But my offer still stands. It's tough to be death. I could use an apprentice. They stared at him, utterly incredulous. Not even going to answer me? A booted foot nudged their bloody side. You're better than this, Mercury. You, of all people, should know when to back the winning side. Mercury? Was that his name? He remembered now. At length he recalled who he was and immediately wished he hadn't. Because memory brought pain. Pain reminded him of his hollow existence. Of Mom, of his old man, of the semblance that had been stolen from him, dead and gone, like the ashes of his old life. Anger stoked a fire in him, helping him to cling on a little longer. Bite me? No can do, son. The whiskered Schnee shook his head. I'm afraid it doesn't work that way. He tried to laugh, but it warped into a wheeze. Afraid. Not bloody likely. Bastard butchered them like cattle. Naruto pinched his cheek. Come on now, give an old man your answer. Mercury refused to speak. For crying out loud. He flung up his hands with an aggravated shout. Why do I always play with my food? You're ruining this for me. Seizing his face entirely, the pale specter growled down at him. I came here to kill an arrogant little brat and her 2 minions who thought they were immortal. But I don't see them anymore. Which begs the question. He leaned in, teeth bared in a snarl. Who are you? Who indeed? That was the question, but he didn't have an answer for him. No sarcastic quip, no clever comeback. Just silence. He was no one. Just a nobody. He hadn't been anyone before and he wasn't now. Marcus Black had seen to that. His old man would have laughed at him if he were here. Probably was laughing even now as he rolled in his grave. At least Emerald had something, even if she'd basically built her life around the lie of Cinder. But what did he have? Metal legs and a sarcastic streak a mile long. That was it. Honestly, it's a little sad. Amber's foot entered his vision a split second before she kicked him, her heel slammed into his cheek and snapped his head aside. Pain flared through his face. It centered him. Brought some color back to his world. That, or it was the heel currently digging into his right cheek. He tried to grab her ankle, to no avail. He was too weak. Had lost far too much blood. Now, Naruto death. Chided the maiden that just might be his granddaughter gently. What did I tell you about kicking a dying man when he's down? She dug her heel deeper. But Gramps, he tried to kill me. He did, Naruto nodded, and he was shit at it. Ouch. I guess he was. Her head bobbed reluctantly, eyes glowing gold. Kinda fucked up, isn't it? Mercury's already deflated ego died with a dull wheeze. He hadn't been that bad, had he? Wasn't his fault she had freaking superpowers. All he had was his aura and metal legs. Didn't even have the excuse of a semblance to fall back on either. His old man had taken that from him years ago. He settled for the classics and spat at her instead. Screw you. Amber pushed her foot down on him. Only screwed one here is you, buddy. Off. Naruto shooed her away with a wave of the hand. Can't have you killing this one before I'm done with him. Mercury growled at him, unable to even raise his head and glare at the man, even now prolonging his demise. Just kill me, then. Or let me bleed out. Get it over with. They didn't, of course. Death wasn't feeling merciful today, apparently. The damn Schnee laid a hand on his gut and Mercury felt the wound close, stitching itself shut with agonizing slowness. Whether he was drawing that out or if he'd actually been wounded that badly was beyond him. He was an assassin. A killer. Not a doctor. Damnable. He just wanted it to end. Why do you want me to live so damn badly? You think I want to be death forever? Whiskered cheeks dimple in a selfsame smile. I won't always be around. I'll have to hand this role over to someone eventually. Not now, of course. Maybe a few 100 years from now. Possibly 1,000. He shrugged a shoulder. Now seems as good a time as any to start training up an apprentice. Something kicked in his chest. It felt like curiosity. Apprentice. A pale brow rose on mild admonishment. Did I stutter? Mercury flailed. But why me? Why not you? Amber huffed and stalked over to her horse. Aren't you the lucky one? Guess we're camping for 3 tonight. Boy. Rude much. He hadn't even agreed to anything yet. I once met a man in armor who imparted a few wise words to me. Even as Naruto spoke, a perilously pale hand grabbed Mercury's still healing wound and wrenched the last of it shut via some eldritch means he couldn't understand, forcing an agonized gasp from the assassin. For those we cherish, we die in glory. What do you cherish, Mercury Black? His mouth opened to answer then closed with a click. Opened again now as he realized the truth. Nothing. Precisely. A bloody hand ruffled his hair. You're a blank slate. That's why I'm offering you a job. A purpose. A purpose. Despite his reservations, it sounded nice. When was the last time he had a purpose? Never. He couldn't remember ever having one. Killing his old man had been a goal, not a purpose, something he hadn't any choice in. It was either Marcus or him. He'd all but dragged himself out of their burning home only to stumble into Emerald and Cinder. The latter had all but taken over his life since. Wasn't like he had much of a choice in his employment afterward. But now Cinder was gone. Emerald too, which was a bit of a shame. He'd missing teasing that uptight bitch, but she never would have accepted an offer like this. Or maybe she would have and stabbed him in the back first chance she got. Should he, then? Betrayal sounded like the obvious choice, but it wasn't. He'd held no real loyalty to Cinder or Emerald. He'd followed them around because it was fun. And because Cinder wasn't likely to leave him alive if he tried to walk out on her. Working with her had been a bit more permanent than he would have liked. A job. Apprenticed to death himself. It almost sounded too good to be true. But that in mind, Mercury clasped both hands behind his head and stubbornly refused to rise from where he lay. Let's talk lean. What are the perks? How much do I get paid? Perks, huh? Naruto belted out a laugh. This time it sounded genuine, not that death's head cackle he'd heard earlier. Already trying to negotiate with me? Mercury tentatively allowed himself to hope, though he didn't dare show it. Can you blame me? This is hardly an ideal interview. Fair. His would-be killer chuckled. What do you want, exactly? Vacation, paid time off, generous benefits. Then, because it was his nature to test the waters, and bitches. All the bitches. Amber huffed as she erected her tent. As if anyone would want to be with some like you. He couldn't resist needling her a little. Girl, you're jealous of my swagger. She snarled. There is no swagger. You literally have metal legs. Exactly. He winked her way. Ladies love prosthetics. This from the bipedal cripple. Mercury countered her instantly. Says the bipedal bitch. You tried to kill me. I have a right to be bitchy. I failed, didn't I? The fall maiden snarled and went back to work. Naruto chuckled ruefully, content to let them have their spat. You're free to find and start a family while I'm training you, yes. You'll have plenty of time. Family, huh? He liked the sound of that. And all the time in the world. Wait. Would he be immortal? Mercury Black, the immortal assassin. Huh. That had a nice ring to it. Yeah, this was starting to sound like a pretty fair deal, here. Oddly enough, the idea of starting a family strangely appealed to him. He wouldn't be a worthless fuck-up like his old man. He'd be better. Any kid of his, son or daughter, would be a certified badass. Unable to help himself, he looked over to Amber, who was even now busily setting up camp. Any chance I could start with your granddaughter? Said granddaughter bounced a cooking pot off his head hard enough to give him a concussion. Over my dead body. Aha. Someone to tease. He could live with that. When do I start? Silence reigned supreme. And then. The grin split Naruto's face. Right now. He thrust a hand forward and stabbed his fingers deep into his unprotected chest, seized his soul, and yanked. Hard. Pain followed, wild and excruciating. As for Mercury Black, well, he blacked out. You know what they say about death, don't you? He always knocks once. But if he whistles. You've already lost. Death. That's the look. Miss Malachite poured herself a drink with hands that didn't shake. That was important. Everything had to appear in control. Clean. Composed. Like nothing was wrong. Like there wasn't a coldness crawling up her spine. Like the shadows in her lounge weren't breathing. Like her entire world wasn't about to come crashing down around her ears. She could feel it though. In her gut. In the subtle tension of air that had grown too still. Her glass, a slender crystal flute, tinked once as she poured from a vintage bottle worth more than most Valiant apartments. She didn't drink it. Lightning flashed outside. A storm was rolling in. As a little girl, she'd always been afraid of lightning. Even more so than spiders. You could stomp on spiders, tame them, pluck their legs, make them work for you. But you couldn't stomp out a storm. You couldn't tame it, couldn't make it yours, couldn't do anything but get the hell out the way or be destroyed. She tried the latter. Now it seemed she had no choice but to face the former. Damnable. How had things come to this? She was a Malachite. She. Between one blink and another a hooded stranger sat beside her at the bar. She balked, caught unawares. When had he? Well. His voice was low, a rumbling undertone she couldn't quite recall. If it isn't little Miss Malachite herself. He chuckled softly as she sputtered, not a laugh, a chuckle, low and dangerous. In the flesh. Bright eyes flashed in the depths of his hood. More of it than I remember. Been hitting the holiday ham, have we? She bridled, even as something tickled at the back of her mind. Who in the hell are you? The grin flashed out at her, pearly white teeth glinting in the gloom. There's the famous ass, the tattoo, and of course, the dress. My compliments to your seamstress. She inhaled, ready to give him a talking to, but all that died as he leaned forward to leer at her. "Hey, I know this is cliché, but can I get your autograph?" As she looked on aghast, he drew forth a wanted poster of her from the folds of his cloak and pressed it down against the bar. All in all, it was a better look for her. Back when she'd been taller, thinner, younger. Her eyes were drawn to the words below her image. "Wanted, dead or alive. Been following you for a long time." The smiling man continued apropos of nothing. "Sign right there, would you kindly?" He tapped a finger against dead 3 times for good measure. "Right. There. Please." Realization dawned, at least she thought it did. Huffing, she planted a fist on her hip, a hint of her old bravado returning. "You one of them bounty hunters, darling." When he didn't answer, she scoffed. "Haven't you heard? I laugh in the face of death." "So I've heard." He removed his hood. She saw his face and froze. Her scroll shrieked once as someone tried to call her and died with a sputtered. The lights flickered, forcing a brief blink from her, unwilling though it was. Amidst the fluttering of her lashes, he vanished. And then the whistle came. Low. Leisurely. A lazy little note carried on air that shouldn't exist inside an airtight warded secured private lounge 3 floors below the dust-slicked clubs of the black market. The tune from no known song. And yet her blood remembered it. Glass shattered against the floor. Not from a tremble. From her throwing it. Deliberately. As if breaking something would anchor her to reality. Her heel clicked sharply across the floor as she ran. To the far wall, flicked open the security panel, and activated every turret, drone, and array under her command. Red lights flared in every corner of the room. Security protocol. Red Widow. Arm everything. Voice recognized. Engaging. She turned. And the room was full of fog. Pale. Slow. Creeping. It oozed in from nowhere and everywhere, brushing against her skin like the fingers of a corpse. Miss Malachite swallowed. And then, she heard it again. The whistle. Drawled and drifting. Like a lullaby for monsters. Woo-weet. Woo-weet. She stepped back, nearly tripping over the overturned glass shards. The voice murmured through the mist, rich with dark humor. "Now that was just rude. I like that glass." She froze. The fog parted. A silhouette stepped through. No footsteps. Just a presence. He wore the cowl again. The long black hood that swallowed light. Sickle handles peered over his shoulders like wings. The tips of golden blonde bangs curled past his brow, sharp as blades. His eyes gleamed crimson gold. Not glowing. Not burning. Just watching. Alive with judgment. And he smiled. "In a while, Malachite." He tilted his head. "Still running scams? Still hiding my granddaughters from me?" Miss Malachite's breath hitched. "Naruto." He corrected. "You lost the right to call me anything else the moment you forged their papers and lied to my face." He took a step forward. The lights died. She reached for her hip, fingers brushing a dust pistol. He didn't stop her. He just whistled. Her gun rotted. Metal twisted, degraded by years in a second, falling to pieces like ash. She flinched as rusted parts bounced off her thigh. "Rule number 1, he said, tone still light. "Don't point a gun at death." He didn't move. Just existed. And the room bowed around him. When he did move, the very floorboards began to decay under his feet. "Rule number 2, he continued, looming over her. "Don't try to cheat death." She backed up, to no avail. For every step she made, he took 2 more. In an instant his face was mere inches from hers. "Would you like to hear rule number 3, daughter of mine?" There it was, the reminder that she shared blood with this monster. Nothing more. By some cruel joke his great gifts had taken one look at her, turned up their nose, and promptly skipped her right over. None of his chakra, none of his talents, just the blonde hair and genetics. His intellect, maybe, but she would never admit that. Not to him. Not after mom ran away. She wanted nothing from this man, but him gone. Malachite shook her head frantically, all but stumbling over herself in her haste to get away. "WW, what do you want?" "Want?" Another step. "I have a lot of wants these days." He almost seemed to enjoy admitting as much. "I want to dote on my children and grandchildren. I want to train my new apprentice. I want to watch as he pokes and prods Amber until she can't take any more. Till she snaps and pins him to a wall." A pause now as he considered something. "I left them outside, naturally. Didn't want them to see this." And then his smile died. "But right now I want what I am owed." His hand came up her chin, not to caress, but to seize and squeeze, pinching her cheeks until her face ached. "I want access. I want to see them. My granddaughters. Milsha and Melanie." His tone darkened. "You've kept me from them for far too longer. Told them I was a myth. A ghost. I told you what would happen if you did that again." She raised her chin. "They're happy." Poor choice of words, that. Happy. In an instant Naruto daddy dearest released her and whirled away, cloak flaring out behind him. They're prisoners, he rounded on her, voice like thunder behind silk. Groomed to lead a gang you built on blackmail and blood. You made them think I was a fairy tale. The sickle flicked into existence without movement. One blink, it wasn't there. The next, it was. Bone white. Curved. Beautiful. Deadly. Now, he said, dragging the tip of the blade across the floor with a shriek. You tell me where they are. Or I'll show you how many layers of hell I've learned to walk through. Because that's what he was, wasn't he? Hell. She'd learned that from an early age. From the moment she understood what fear was, she'd feared her father. No amount of flattery or gifts or smiles could change that. She knew what he was, knew what hid behind those sugary sweet smiles, knew what he was capable of. Whatever he'd been once, he was far from human now. She couldn't see past it. She simply couldn't. Maybe that was a character flaw on her part. Being unable to look past her fear. But it didn't change the facts. She'd always been afraid. You really do hate me, don't you? He remarked suddenly, surprising her. Is this about your mother? Are you still upset about that? His head tilted just so, smile slackening ever so slightly. We've been over this, it was her time. She wanted to go. She chose to. I respected that choice. She had and she did and she hated him for it still. She feared him, yes, but she'd deny him to her dying breath. Miss Malachite backed up and reached for a switch on the wall. Naruto appeared behind her. Not moved. Appeared. I warned you once. He leaned in. His breath fogged her ear. Don't. Cheat. Death. She spun, slashing with a dagger from her sleeve, one blessed by an underworld priestess. He caught it between two fingers. Snapped it. The shards whispered into so much smoke. Naruto stepped through it. His hood fell back as he did, exposing his visage once more. His face young and old. Whiskered and lined. A smile that belonged to a man who died 1,000 times and came back to bury the world in return. She wouldn't believe anyone who told her otherwise. She did not trust him. She could not trust him, for to do so would abandoning a life of hate. And she didn't want to stop hating him. Her girls would never be safe with this monster. They would become like him. Reapers. You know, he murmured. I used to be mortal. Thought like you. Took shortcuts like you. Thought power meant control. This time he moved. In a blur, she was pinned against the wall. One hand around her throat, not tight but firm. But the ever after taught me otherwise. The real kind of control. He lifted her chin with a finger, is knowing when not to kill someone. You made me kill 3 people to get here. 3 people who weren't meant to die this month. He tilted his head. I'm not feeling generous tonight. You won't touch them. Her voice cracked. They're not like you. They're innocent. I know, he said gently. That's why I'm taking them from you. The lights flickered. And behind him, 2 figures stepped through the door. Melanie and Melcia. Frozen in shock. Standing in the hallway, bathed in the last remnants of light and shadow. Grandpa? Melcia whispered. Naruto didn't look away from Miss Malachite. Go upstairs, girls. Pack a bag. Your mother and I are gonna have a talk. Melanie's voice trembled. She's not our mother. Naruto smiled. A real one. Bright. Sharp. No, he agreed. She's not. The words broke something in her. Did they think she wanted to be like this? Did they have any idea how much she'd seen? How much she'd sacrificed for their livelihoods? She'd never wanted this. Never wanted her girls to manifest his gifts, never wanted to be a part of this hideous tainted bloodline. Damn Nicholas Schnee. Damn Naruto. Damn whatever he was calling himself these days. Naruto turned back towards her and she saw her death in his eyes. There it is. That's the look. Fear. Malachite kicked out at him, to no avail. He didn't let go. He could kill her here and now. He just might. Her aura flexed, flickered, faltered. He let go. She slumped to the floor, fell to her hands and knees in a waste, gasping for air. You know, he said, stepping back, you could have just let me visit. Played nice. You didn't have to pull strings or bury my name or blackmail me with that old treaty with the white fang. Shit. He knew about that one, did he? Which meant he'd be paying a visit to Menagerie soon. She coughed wetly. I was protecting my family. From who? She growled. You. He paused. Then, very slowly, nodded. Fine. He stepped toward the door. Then I'll protect them from you. He lifted a hand, something dancing across his fingers. A silver coin shimmered in his palm. With it, she felt a strange hollowness in her chest, as though someone had reached deep inside her and plucked out something terribly important. Not her heart, nor her semblance, but something far more important. Don't follow us. Don't try to contact them. Don't send anyone. You do. He flipped the coin. It vanished into thin air. And I'll collect more than just your soul next time. Are we clear? Malachite gulped, massaging her throat. Crystal. Good girl. See you around. Piss off. She swiped at his ankle, teeth bared, for all the good it did her. I don't want to see you ever again. I hate you. He exhaled once, the barest of breaths, words almost lost within. You were my daughter, Malachite. I loved you. Loved. Past tense. Certainly not present. The word struck a chord in her. It hurt. Her girls were already descending the staircase, bags in hand. Neither of them looked her way. Not once. But her so-called father did. Those awful bright eyes drank her in, and she hated every instant of it. Some father he was. Who did he think he was, playing at being a grandfather now, after all this time? Why hadn't he been there for her? Except he had been, hadn't he? Thinking back on it, he'd always been around in some form or another, even after Mom abandoned them. Even when she'd refused to come back. Yet she'd been too afraid of him to see. Only now was it clear. Instead of embracing, he'd consistently kept him at arm's length, shoved him away, until he finally stayed away. She'd made plots and plans to keep him there until he'd learned of his granddaughters. Now here he was. One last time, before he abandoned her for good. And she'd no one to blame but herself. Hindsight is 20/20. Damn it. Damn him. Damn them all. Naruto turned his back on her and led her girls out the door. That damnable whistle followed him out, lingering long after her left. Little Miss Malachite crumpled down onto her knees with a wail and wept. What if Naruto and Weiss married rwby? End here, and thanks for watching my video till the end.